sneer at the idea of Dylan Raiola playing in the Detroit Poop Bowl. Dylan Raiola can't play in that bowl game. Dylan Raiola cannot play in a game in a season in which he's fighting for bowl eligibility. That is not what we're doing here. He says, I don't play in Detroit.
I think he would actually love playing in Detroit.
No, he wouldn't.
A city where his father played.
No. I forgot about that part.
The Connor Happer Show, weekdays from 10 to 2 on 1620 The Zone. Your Omaha area forecast from the Godfather's Pizza Weather Center and KETV Newswatch 7.
A very winter-like feel today. We had a few flurries earlier, but that should be done for the rest of your Friday evening. And we should see temperatures slowly drop into the teens, and that's probably where we will start tomorrow morning as well. Throughout your day on Saturday, a chance to see a few flurries throughout the day. Still a cold high temperature of 29 degrees. I'm meteorologist Luke Vickery, KETV Newswatch 7.
1620 The Zone. Traffic.
From the Pyramid Roofing Time-Saving Traffic Center. Good morning. Hope you had a fantastic Thanksgiving weekend. Want to give you a heads up, there's a rollover semi over on southbound I-29 in Council Bluffs. It's blocking the right 2 lanes and it's causing stop-and-go traffic between I-80 and exit 47. There's not a whole lot else going on in the Omaha Metro at this moment. Just be careful of possible slick road conditions due to the light snow this morning. Be sure to buckle up and drive safe out there. I'm Joey Colbert.
This time-saving traffic was brought to you by IBEW Local 22.
The electrical market requires your company to adjust to an ever-changing field. IBEW Local 22 gives you flexibility with access to journeymen, apprentices, and proven training programs. Call Bob at IBEW Local 22 for details at 402-980-7596.
The Zone Hotline is powered by 42 Degrees, The Source, by your mom's house.
Hey fans, it's John Bishop. Did you know there's a way to help support your favorite school's NIL and not break the bank? On the Line has partnered with Creighton, Nebraska, and Omaha to help you and your contributions to recruit and retain the best student athletes in the nation. Gamify your giving by donating a dollar amount for every win or another measurable metric from your favorite team this season. Get signed up today at athleticsontheline.com. That's athleticsontheline.com. Gamify your giving. Support your favorite school with On the Line.
Guys, it's finally here. Wendy's new salted caramel frosty. It's cold, salted, yet perfectly sweet, delicious, and it's at the top of Santa's Christmas list. What? Santa has a list too, you know. And he's a huge salted caramel frosty fan. Probably why he's so jolly all the time. The iconic Frosty with a salted caramel twist? Gotta be Wendy's.
Limited time only at participating U.S. Wendy's. Salted caramel Frosty flavored with other natural flavors.
Not all products are available in all 50 states. Compounded products are not FDA approved nor verified for safety, efficacy, or quality. Wegovy and Ozempic are not compounded. Prescription required. Restrictions apply. See website for full details.
Why try Hims for weight loss? If you're interested in personalized prescription options, including Ozempic, Wegovy, oral medications, and compounded GLP-1 injections, and the support to see real results, you might like it. Yes. Why try Hims to regrow hair? If a range of treatment options made with clinically proven ingredients like minoxidil and finasteride for thicker, fuller hair in 3 to 6 months sound good, you might like it. Yes. Why try Hims for ED? If you've been looking for access to doctor-trusted treatments like Viagra, Cialis, and their more affordable generic counterparts, you and your partner might like it. The Hims process is simple, 100% online, and treatments are shipped free to your door in discreet packaging if prescribed. What's not to like? To save big on weight loss, hair loss, and ED solutions, get started today at hims.com. That's hims.com.
I'm Chris Rose with NFL Network Now on the Westwood One Radio Network. Russell Wilson threw for 414 yards and 3 scores. Steelers topped the Bengals 44-38. Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts each ran for a touchdown. Eagles topped the Ravens 24-19. Anthony Richardson threw a touchdown pass with 12 seconds left, then ran for the game-winning 2-point conversion. Colts beat the Patriots 25-24. Jaden Daniels threw for 3 scores, ran for another. Commanders dominate the Titans 42-19. Vikings came back to beat the Cards 23-22. Bucks rallied to beat the Panthers in overtime by 3. Chargers topped the Falcons 17-13. Kirk Cousins threw 4 picks. Seahawks beat the Jets 26-21 in Geno Smith's return to New York. Texans held off the Jags by 3. Rams beat the Saints 21-14. And on a snowy Sunday night in Buffalo, Josh Allen became the first quarterback with a passing TD, rushing score, and receiving touchdown in the same game. Bills beat the Niners 35-10. This has been NFL Network Now on the Westwood One Radio Network.
Life insurance. Why are you putting it off? Can't afford it? Too much hassle? Think you don't need it? There's lots of excuses for putting off life insurance. But if you weren't there, who would pay the mortgage and other bills? With Ethos, you could be covered in 10 minutes and boom, family protected. Ethos, fast and easy online term life insurance. Up to $2 million in coverage with no medical exam. Some policies as low as $1 a day. Answer a few health questions and get your free quote at tryethos.com. That's tryethos.com.
On the battlefield, there's a saying America's military men and women live by. Never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Off the battlefield, Wounded Warrior Project operates with the same goal. Wounded Warrior Project was created to help our men and women returning home with the scars of war, whether those scars are physical or mental. Wounded Warrior Project. We never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Learn more about what we do at woundedwarriorproject.org.
Check off everyone on your holiday list at Saul's. Laptops starting at $99. Name brand power tools starting at $5. Snowblowers starting at $99. And bling in the holidays with up to 50% off all jewelry. Hurry in and check off your whole list today at Saul's Jewelry alone.
Early giving is open for Giving Tuesday. Discover and donate to your choice of nonprofits at shareomaha.org. Support what matters to you. Give now through December 3rd at shareomaha.org.
Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the propane tank on your grill first before hosting a tailgate.
Let's fire up. Here, let me try. Seriously? You didn't check the propane? Who wants chips?
Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds.
Salt and vinegar?
You're in good hands with Allstate.
Savings vary, subject to terms, conditions, and availability. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
1620 The Zone.
It was not a timeout. They just reset this whole play. Nebraska breaks the huddle. Raiola under center. Turns, hands off Dowdell. Plunges into the end zone. Touchdown, Nebraska. What a drive for the Big Red. An exclamation point on what has been a wonderful first half here in Iowa City. 9-0, Big Red.
Gives me the opportunity for more math. 2 times 3 is 6. Give me all of them.
Caleb Johnson motions back into the backfield to the right of Stratton, who's out of the shotgun. Ball at the 28-yard line of the Hawkeyes. Swing it out to Johnson in the flat. Johnson trying to turn it upfield, now pushing the pile forward, gets off the defender at the 45. He's at the 50, cuts back, he's off to the races. He's at the 30, the 20, the 15, 10, middle of the field, 5, touchdown, Caleb Johnson. Iowa finally breaks the big play, and the Hawkeyes a point away from tying this up on the first play of the fourth quarter.
Yeah, what's ultimately a travesty, which was one of the keys to the game, getting the deuce down to the ground in the open field. He turns a loss into 6 points.
Well, we'll see. I just don't see anything that would make me think of it.
After review, the ruling on the film of a fumble recovered by the defense is confirmed. It's first down, Iowa. Please reset the game clock to 20 seconds. Please reset the game clock to 20 seconds.
So they put 20 seconds on the clock. Iowa recovers the ball at the Nebraska 36-yard line. Unbelievable. 53-yard field goal attempt for Stevens, the junior from Georgia. 2 50-yard field goals last week against Maryland. From the right hash. Hold is down. Kick is up, on the way, and it is good. As time expires, Drew Stevens makes a 53-yard field goal, and the Hawkeyes have broken the Huskers' hearts yet again.
Again.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome in. Wow. That's called pain. 2 straight years Nebraska loses on a walk-off field goal. 13-10 to Iowa. Plenty to discuss on what happened on Friday. I don't know if people's emotions are a little bit different a couple of days later. But there's a lot to unpack on what happened on Friday and what's happened on Saturday, what happened yesterday, what's going to happen this morning. Good morning, everybody. Welcome in. It's the Gary Sharp Show for the final week.
With Gary.
For the
yes.
final week? Is that
Yes.
a tease, Sharpie?
Yeah, this next Monday, there will be a brand new morning show on 1620 The Zone.
Who will be on it?
Do not know.
I'll tell you.
I don't even know if I'll be on it.
Or
I was
me.
just alerted that there will be a new morning show on 1620 1 week from today. So this is the last week forever that there will be a Gary Sharp show. So welcome in, everybody. Yes. And it is unfortunate this morning because I was like fired up the last week of this show before the morning show on 1620 The Zone has a new name and new hosts.
New people.
I was supposed to have a celebrity. I would call him a celebrity co-host.
I was
that
so
going to be on the show today.
I was excited getting up on Monday.
He had never hosted before. He was fired up. He was telling his friends.
He texted me.
His friends were telling me that he was going to be on the show. And then he texted me on Saturday afternoon and said something has come up and he can't be in. So that famous song, I think it was Sonny and Cher, You and Me, Babe. Jimmy, it's you and I this morning. But welcome back, everybody, from your Thanksgiving break. Hope everybody had a safe and wonderful Thanksgiving. If you have leftovers, that means you had one hell of a spread on Thursday because it's been a couple of days since. You should have cleaned out the leftovers. I'm not a leftover guy personally.
Not even at Thanksgiving?
No, I'm not Thanksgiving, whatever. I just I don't like reheating stuff.
Mm-hmm. Not the same.
No, nothing into the air fryer, none of that kind of stuff. So
my wife's not a leftovers person, so I always ask, well, Thanksgiving, is that a exception? Because sometimes that is, but I get that.
So you go to if you go somewhere else, well, even if you're cooking at home, you create your own Thanksgiving meal, and then you make bags for people that are leaving. And the Thanksgiving party that I was at on Thursday night, there was a lot of food. I mean, there was a lot of friggin' food. There are less turkeys in America because of this party that I was at on Thursday night. And as you're leaving, the host with the mostest, she is preparing bags of food for people.
Damn.
And I said,
that's a goodie bag.
You know what? I'm not home very much, so it's probably just going to sit in my fridge. I think I'm good. It offended her. She was like upset that I did not take leftovers home. But if you have leftovers, you had one gigantic spread on Thursday, or you've celebrated here in the last couple of days of Thanksgiving. So welcome back, everybody. Hope everybody had a good break.
The hell's this crap falling today? And I didn't know that wasn't expected. I walked out like, all right, it's going to be cold. We got Jacob this morning. It's going to be a great day, great week. And I was like, what is this?
I wasn't going to say his name.
Oh, well, they don't know which Jacob. There are multiple Jacobs in our area.
Yeah, well, one of them more than likely never gets up before 10. That's why he's not a guest on the show anymore. That's why we had him as a guest on the midday show, because he ain't getting up before 10. But, Jimmy, it's December 2nd.
I know.
What the hell? You're going to live in Omaha, Nebraska. What the hell you expect?
I know, but I got my fill of snow last night watching the Bills and Niners. That was fun.
We'll get to that because there is a pertinent question out there. Is there too much snow? As an old man, you get up to pee in the middle of the night. And so, of course, you look at your phone, which is counterproductive to everything that anybody tells you about having a good night's sleep. But I just can't resist. And I saw a picture of a reporter that was leaving the stadium in Buffalo, and it was 1:00 our time, and it was still snowing.
Oh. But at least if you go 10 miles, it's dry as can be.
Yeah, that's Buffalo.
You just got to make it out of that little band.
I was in Cleveland 2 weeks ago, and it's snowing at the Browns-Steelers game, and where I was in Cleveland, it was just flurries. And you're like, okay. Yeah, and they got the same thing last night in Buffalo. So welcome back in, everybody. It's also a good start. Your commute in, I noticed, maybe it's because it's December. It's the last month of the year. We're the last December 2nd that we'll have of 2024. My commute in, Leavenworth has finally been fixed.
All right, congratulations.
All of the orange barriers and stuff on Leavenworth, gone.
By the way, you got the stream in a panic.
Why?
They think we're gone. I don't know. Are we gone? We'll find out.
We're here until 10 today.
Yeah.
Okay.
We got 5 shows this week.
There is no guarantee. But you know what? For all those people that have joined us in the stream, and God bless you, and we've developed quite the community here, and a lot of those people I'd like to meet in person someday, whether for the good or the bad. I think we should all begin as you begin today. I think every teacher across Nebraska, and hell, across Iowa, you should start with a handshake. Do they still do the Pledge of Allegiance? Do they play the national anthem?
Did they recite anything to begin a school day? We had going to Catholic grade school, we did a prayer, which would be appropriate. But I think everybody in Nebraska and Iowa should start today with a handshake.
Yeah.
Everybody you see, you should handshake. I'm a big proponent of the high five. I'd like to bring the high five back. The high five has gone the way of the fist bump. But today would be the day where you would shake hands and then make sure that you have some faux outrage at something that is going on. As you can see what the tone of this show will be, which probably was different on Saturday compared to what it's like on Monday, to talk about all of Friday night in Iowa City. First and foremost, in the Open. So Greg Sharp was unable to do the game on Friday night over in Iowa. Lane Grindle sounded great.
That's who it was.
Yeah, Lane Grindle sounded awesome. Now, he's got a little Kugler in him. He's got a little Greg Sharp in him. But Lane sounded great. Lane, who used to be on the network, that was after I left. And Lane and I have only crossed paths a couple of times. We've known of each other, but I'm a big fan of his work. His primary job is with the Milwaukee Brewers radio crew, but he filled in for Greg on Friday night. He did a great job.
He did.
Great job. That's people right now are just realizing that Greg Sharp was not there, and that was Lane. Because there's a little bit of, you're playing that highlight clip and you're like,
At first I thought it was Greg, and then at the end I was like, wait, who is this? What?
But welcome in, everybody. We are off and running. Nobody needs to panic. Jimmy, tell everybody on the stream they do not need to panic.
We're in good shape, guys.
Yes. But
just
good morning.
Hang loose, blood.
Good morning to all, especially Creighton and Nebraska volleyball that begin the run to Natty. The field of 64 in volleyball was announced yesterday. It was fumbled on ESPN's broadcast.
Shocker.
They do, like, when they reveal softball and baseball, and maybe it's because Schick is involved, they do a great job. But it seems like all the other sports, even like the FCS rollout, seems to be choppy. I have no idea what ESPN was trying to accomplish last night when they start rolling out the national top seeds, and they go 1, 2, 3, and we'll be back with the fourth one in a moment. Now, it was a incredible tease, but what are we doing? Did we not learn from, CBS the one year where they just revealed all kinds of whatever the hell that was? Was that like 5-6 years ago?
Yeah.
Where they just fumbled it? I don't know what ESPN was doing last night, but the bracket is out, and Nebraska and Creighton are on the road to a natty, probably compared to some others, not the greatest draw, but this year in college volleyball, if you win the national title, it may mean more, and you don't have to be from the SEC. This is going to be a banger of a tournament. I don't think there's any easy path to get to Louisville in the Final Four and to win a national championship, but they both begin this week at home. The incredible run for Nebraska volleyball, which is the program of consistency at that fine university. 43 straight years they've been in the NCAA tournament. This will be the 20th year, take out the COVID year, that they have hosted. And then Creighton, which was probably dinged unfairly because they play in the Big East, but they played an aggressive non-conference schedule. They're not a top 4 seed. They're a 6 seed. They start at home. Then they would have to go on the road. But I don't know who would want to come in and play Creighton right now at Sokol. So good morning to both of those programs as they begin in the volleyball state. And not a good morning to everyone that's not able to cash that over ticket on Nebraska's win total this year. That is now 6-6. And now we wait. We wait. We wait for content. We wait for a bowl destination. We wait for new players. We wait for old players.
A new opponent to hate.
Yeah, and part of what happened on Friday, and again, I wonder if the emotions are the same, because there was a wide range of emotions when you lose a game like that. First of all, you lost to Iowa. Okay, that's a rivalry. That should sting. You should be ticked off. There's the pain. There's the anger of the way the game unfolded, where, for the most part, Nebraska dominated the line of scrimmage, and it came down to a handful of plays. The Nebraska was not able to make winning plays when it mattered, and Iowa is Iowa, and Nebraska is Nebraska, and that sucks. That sucks to be in that world. If it's Iowa, it's great, because your whole strategy to win football games, and why not, because it works, is to have the old risk-averse strategy where this is how you win. Everybody in your program knows how you win. You just sit back and you wait for somebody else to make mistakes, and then you pounce on them. And if you're on the other side, like Nebraska is, that is a terrible place to be, because you can do everything right and one or two mistakes and you get beat. And somebody just waiting for you to make mistakes instead of being, oh my gosh, they're going to run it down our throat. They're going to dominate us. They're going to only allow us 5 first downs. We're not going to convert a third down, which is part of the
pretty astonishing
anger and Iowa's Iowa, Nebraska's Nebraska, is that Iowa football won a game against Nebraska. Now, Nebraska didn't score any points in the second half, which has to be a conversation starter. But you can't waste a night where your defense goes into Iowa City, shuts down their run game, only gives up 164 yards of total offense, only 5 first downs, and you're like, wow, Nebraska lost that game 13-10. And then you look at the stats after the game.
You're like, how?
Statistically, it looks impossible. But we all know too well that around here, in that game against Iowa, exactly. Unbelievable, I think, was the word that Damon and Lane used on the broadcast. It is Iowa's Iowa and Nebraska is in Nebraska. So it's okay to be angry. It's okay to feel the pain. But it's also okay. Let's talk about the football game. Okay, I know what happened at the beginning of the game, what was said after the game. I'll get to that. I think there's, and everybody's entitled to their opinion. And Husker and Iowa Twitter was just a cesspool on Saturday of people going back and forth. But let's don't have manufactured outrage. Because think about this weekend when it comes to the beloved sport of football.
Everybody was pissy.
Well, so the week, starting on Thursday all the way to last night when the Bills beat the Niners in a snow globe. Do we forget the brain fart of Matt Eberflus? Do I have to remind people?
You won't forget.
All the way back to Thursday in the first football game played of the Thanksgiving break of what the Bears did at the end with letting the clock run out and they lose to Detroit. And then, of course, the next day, the botched firing of Eberflus, and he is out in Chicago, which he should have never been allowed with a rookie quarterback to be the head coach. But that's a Bears thing. So I'm reminding you of that because now you're probably like, oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Then you have the Nebraska-Iowa game. Have we also forgotten, because it seems like an eternity now, that Georgia and Georgia Tech played 8 overtimes?
I stayed up for each one.
Which is such a bad way to decide a football game in college.
Yeah.
Who would have thought that the NFL has figured out their overtime and college football has not? From the standpoint of, I laughed because that game, when the Nebraska-Iowa game ended, I didn't have it. I just couldn't do Big Red overreaction. Regardless if Connor and Jack were doing the show and it would be pure comedy with the callers, I couldn't do it. So turned over to Georgia Tech, and it was right at the end of regulation. So they're getting ready to go to overtime. Watch the entire overtime. 2-point plays are bad plays to begin with.
Yeah.
It's not like you practice them over and over and you have like 6 go-to 2-point plays.
You have a couple.
It's a bad play. But I had a laugh every time where you walk to the other end. When it's a new overtime session, you walk to the other end.
Your steps.
Not the way to decide overtime in college. But that game seems like an eternity ago. And then you had all of the stuff that went on in the rivalry games this weekend in college football. And some people lost their mind. Absolutely lost their mind on what went on. And there is the offseason in football that does not involve games between August and to where we are right now on the cusp of the money grab for conference championship games this weekend and then on to the playoff and all the bowl games. Is college football doesn't do that well. And there's doom and gloom out there about the sport of college football, that the portal is going to kill it. The NIL is going to kill it. Tradition is gone. The sport will never be the same. And it won't, but we all have to adapt. But you know what? This weekend to me, and I hope many others, was true college football. I love that we have the love of the sport, that in this sport where there is so much emotion, you play the game of football or any sport you play that has competition, you got to have emotion. If you don't got emotion, then I'm checking the pulse. So you have the love, Then you have pure hate. There was pure hate on Friday night in Iowa City. There was pure hate in Columbus, Ohio. There was pure hate in Tallahassee, Florida. There was pure hate. Where else did we have I think all the flag plantings that went on resulted in a fight. South Carolina, Clemson.
Oh, yes. Again, you've been to a South Carolina Clemson fight?
Where else? Well, I'm missing one.
Arizona State. There was another one.
So
planting the fork on the egg.
Everything that had a flag planting, we had a fight. But that's what college football is. College football can be on respect, but also in hate.
We need hate.
You hate your opponent. And then the other part of college football is I love the wild plays. This weekend was what college football is about because you had heartbreak, and you had joy. Look at the range of emotions from Iowa to Nebraska to Ohio State and Michigan. It is a sport that I hope you love because the passion is unmatched, and that'll never be taken away. You can knock my sport. You can pay players. You can have free agency. You can be NFL light. But the passion for college
rivalries like Utah and UCF.
No, depends on Scott Frost is back at UCF. But the passion will never be. You can never take that away. Now, part of this weekend was for some probably a black eye. And I think we have to talk about the logo at the middle of the field. Now, the planting of the flag. I'm not sure what country you've conquered to go out there and plant a flag. And I saw some memes over the weekend of the flag at Pearl Harbor, and it said, "Don't forget November 30th, 2024."
The MTV flag.
It was the weekend where college football turned into WWE with so many fights. But that's passion. That's rivalry.
At least
that's
they still
hate.
care.
Exactly.
At least it still matters.
You get, well, I don't know if those guys like to win because, they're getting paid. But I also want to see the person that takes the flag and they have so much pride in their school that try and plant it in a synthetic turf field.
Which actually could hurt that turf field.
But they love their school and they love that flag and they love that they've won that game. But then when another school comes in and they offer them more money in NIL, they're like, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I'm out.
Give me that Alabama flag.
But we probably have to have a discussion about the midfield logo because the midfield logo is quite a point of contention, I would say. It is anything you do as an opponent on the midfield logo, which I can't believe we're talking about this, but we have to because it was a big part of the whole weekend of college football.
It sets up the rest of the conversation.
But anytime you do something on the midfield logo, you're going to cause a reaction. For Nebraska's example, when they go to pray on the midfield logo, whether it be at home or away. Now, home is different because nobody's going to bat an eye.
Yeah.
But, cops were protecting the Tiger Hawk in the middle of the field at Kinnick Stadium on Friday night. But when you go to somebody else's midfield logo, you are looking and expecting a reaction. Mm-hmm. You don't just say, hey, let's go stand on their logo and do this, this, and this.
Let's pray for both teams.
Well, you do after the game, right?
Yeah.
The melee that was going on in Columbus where people were getting pepper sprayed and there were fights going on and Ryan Day is standing as the losers go by and he says, what happened?
Should have joined the prayer right in front of him.
Well, there were guys, did you see there were players, which is common across, especially college football. I don't know if I notice it as much in the NFL, but in college football, it's very much part of the landscape is players are down on a knee kneeling. Mm-hmm. They're having the post-game prayer. I don't think I ever see players from both sides get together for a prayer before the game. The only time I can recall was when Nebraska went to Penn State in 2011, when both teams came out to the middle of the field and they had a prayer. But anytime you do something on the midfield logo, you are going to cause a reaction. And when you do something like that, and you should expect a reaction. Should it involve the cops? I don't know. I don't think so. But the midfield logo has become so special. But here's the other thing about the planting of the flag. Please don't take that away. Don't overreact, Big Ten. They fined Michigan and Ohio State yesterday, but don't take away the planting of the flag. We have to figure out why the flag has become so important, but also it has maybe planting a flag in the middle of your rival's field is greater than when Marvin the Martian planted the flag in the cartoon.
Nice. I didn't have that on my scorecard.
The rivalry is now greater than landing on the moon and planting a flag if I'm just going off the college football I watched this weekend.
I can get
Am I onto something there?
I think so.
Am I also onto the fact that Marvin the Martian was a very underrated cartoon character?
And just like that, the phone starts ringing. So I think somebody agrees or disagrees.
But this is a sport that is full of emotion. And especially with what happened before the game, what was said after the game, and winners get to choose the narrative. That's how it works. I don't make up the rules. If you win, you get to choose the narrative, whether you like it or not, or whether somebody is just spewing BS, and then they're called on the carpet. But winners get to talk. They have the narrative. Okay? That's just how it works. And especially in a rivalry game, you got to wait another year.
If you don't like it, beat them.
Exactly.
That's what Ohio State could have done.
Hey, if you don't like people planting a flag in the middle of your field,
score more points.
You know, you got 60 minutes to do something about it. You know, when you lose a game, shake their hands, say thank you, or just get the hell off the field. Just get off the field, go into the locker room. What do you got to prove out there?
You got a big meal.
Ryan Day probably looked worse for what was going on during the fight than he did during the 60 minutes of football, which I still can't figure out what their game plan was against Michigan, but we'll have more on that in a moment. People have opinions on what happened between Nebraska and Iowa, and it has ramped up what is going to be next year. What's going to happen next year when they play again? When Kirk Ferentz may coach his final game in the regular season at Iowa next year in Lincoln. But what happened on Friday is part of a rivalry. It's part of hate. It drives what's going to happen next year, and we get to talk about it for 364 days about what that's going to be like. And I know people have opinions on the handshake.
I didn't shake hands during COVID.
I would like to more talk about the fact that Nebraska finished the year 6-6.
It's a game better than last year.
But let's
They get to play another game.
Let's don't have this manufactured outrage. If you want to rage that the fact that Nebraska is 6-6. And you go, well, they're going to a bowl game. Well, you want a crap sandwich?
Yeah.
You want a crap sandwich as part of what happened on Friday night?
Probably cost you $12 nowadays.
Is that what the going rate is for
a crap sandwich? A good one. Not the store-bought ones, but it's like you go get an Uncrustable, and then there's the store-bought Uncrustable.
I'm hooked on a local sandwich shop downtown that is not Block 16 because they don't serve a crap sandwich. They just serve gold between a bun. I'm going to look next time to see if the crab sandwich is on the menu and how much it's going for. With inflation, it might be more than 12 nowadays. But so part of Friday and the crab sandwich is we're all now trying to figure out when Nebraska is going to go in a bowl game.
Yeah.
It was, you win, you go to Tampa. You lose, you go to Nashville. Been to both cities.
Nashville's a banger.
Nashville is a fun town.
Hawk Tua's there. What more do you say? We talked about our podcast on this show.
Broadway is there. Country music is there. Shabuzi is there. Jelly Roll is there.
Jelly Roll's everywhere.
Jelly Roll is everywhere. But here's the crap sandwich, a part of losing on Friday, and then what Michigan did at Ohio State. The first bowl projection out this morning that I've seen is from USA Today.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Pinstripe Bowl.
Look outside. It could look like that.
USA Today this morning has the Pinstripe Bowl as the destination for Nebraska, and they would play Pitt. Most of the projections, if Nebraska's going to Nashville, is they would play against LSU. Okay.
Oh, neck. Let's go.
Or, I've seen Charlotte, I've seen Phoenix, but the Pinstripe Bowl would be
cold.
It would be more expensive.
Yes.
To go to New York City over Christmas.
They have a really big tree you could go see.
Not a bad time slot. But because Michigan won, now Michigan might be in play for Nashville, and that would knock Nebraska down. I don't know if we'll see Troy Dannon openly lobbying for a spot, but Nebraska, even at 6-6, because of the numbers they'll bring, and then more importantly, the TV ratings.
That'll help.
Both sites could have an empty stadium, but if the TV ratings are good, they're like, hey, this is a successful bowl. Nebraska will bring people if it's within driving distance.
Nashville is.
And then they will bring TV ratings. But maybe the way this season ended, where you started 5-1 and then lost 5 of the last 6 and was so on brand for Nebraska in close games that you deserve to go to the Pinstripe Bowl. But that's a major letdown if that's where Nebraska is going.
The game in Phoenix is the 26th at 3 o'clock, 3:30.
Which I know, but you can spend Christmas in Phoenix. It's a lot easier from like Omaha to get to Phoenix.
I did it last year.
I think it was the Sporting News or ESPN had the projection of that bowl, Texas Tech. I mean,
Dana against Texas Tech.
whoever you're gonna play,
the McGuire Bowl.
Well,
oh, okay.
I'm
trying.
Yeah, I can't. Sorry. But Texas Tech is starting to have like some guys jump into the portal.
Yeah.
And they may have some players that opt out. Whoever Nebraska plays, more than likely, they're going to have more opt-outs than you will. Maybe it doesn't matter and it'll even out because there's going to be a lot of activity in the portal because the portal opens up on December 9th. But for a program that hasn't gone to a bowl game since 2016, to have me sit here and go, the Pinstripe Bowl, I know, isn't a good look. Pinstripe Bowl would suck. They're nice people. They put on a good show.
New York's cool.
They reached out to us a couple of years ago about getting guests on. Hey, if you come to the city, we'll give you a tour of Yankee Stadium. It would be a letdown to be in the Pinstripe Bowl. But you're 6-6. And maybe we have to face reality about Nebraska being 6-6 and say out loud, when you are a 500 football team and you are a 500 football program, you deserve to go to the Pinstripe Bowl. You've earned a bowl bid, but your bowl bid is going to New York City to play in the Pinstripe Bowl, where it could look like upstate New York last night.
Speaking of, our friend Pyro Vito lives up there. It was the Syracuse game the other night, so he could drive down. So there's that. But yeah, at least Nebraska fans will have the clothing to go to New York. Now that we're saying this, it's going to be an unseasonably warm 63-degree day there. Just gorgeous. I'm trying. I'm turning over a new leaf.
All right.
Full of positivity.
Coming up on the last week of the Gary Sharp Show, the lineup it is. I'm not.
It is. I know. I believe you.
I'm not telling any inside secrets. This is the last week of the Gary Sharp Show. We don't know how much Gary will be on his own show this week. No, I just won't be here Friday. The lineup brought to you by the referees at John Higgins Weather Guard. Ben Audie from the BA Coaches Show. Join us coming up at 8. Evan Bland at 8:30. We will have a basketball guest at 9. Because we might have to have a discussion that maybe Nebraska basketball is good. This is a big week for hoops around here because Creighton's Selection Sunday run begins now. They have KU on Wednesday night. Tuesday and Wednesday are great days in college basketball.
Right here, in our own town.
Big East, Big 12 Challenge. I think it's the SEC, ACC Challenge this week. But KU and Creighton play at 7:30 on Wednesday night. Selection Sunday run begins now for Creighton after their 1-2 trip out to Vegas. But we may have to have a discussion, and a real discussion, not a, you guys are just trying to fill segments. Nebraska basketball actually might be okay. And they've got a big week spread out where their next two games are basically a week apart, where they go to Michigan State, who is not ranked,
Frankie,
on Saturday in East Lansing. Yes, that will be a storyline. We'll see if Frankie is happy.
Farewell, Chucky. We got Frankie now to be the storyline.
Frankie got taken out of the starting lineup. I got the impression he was not really happy about that.
Izzo doesn't like the zone.
But Nebraska plays at Michigan State, and then they come home on the 13th and play Indiana. So I promise we will have a basketball guest coming up at 9. We will have with all of you. You want to react to the weekend, whether it involved Nebraska-Iowa or anything else, or is there such thing as too much snow?
Absolutely.
That you saw in Buffalo.
Well, not on TV. That's a them problem.
San Francisco bad, Buffalo good. There's my takeaway from the Snow Globe game last night on NBC.
San Francisco done.
And Christian McCaffrey is done for the year. PCL injury, but should he have been playing last night on the skating rink?
That's what I thought.
He's already have the Achilles issue, and he's out there playing on a skating rink, and now he's lost for the year. And maybe the 49ers Super Bowl window has gone because he's going to be 29. I think he'll be 29 next year.
And in running back years, that's like 42.
But maybe, I don't know. There's a running back renaissance this year with Saquon Barkley and Josh Allen now heading head-to-head in the MVP race. You can join the show, the conversation, anything goes this morning. 402-951-1620. That is the hotline brought to you by the good folks at 42 Degrees by your mom's house. Also into the Equitable Bank inbox where they take banking personally. And on Cyber Monday,
oh, yes, that's today.
You'll be doing a lot of transactions. Gary at 1620thezone.com. Also on the JTech Construction Zone Twitter feed at Gary Sharp 1620. Lots on what happened over the weekend. And of course, what involves with Nebraska. Because are we closing the book? Do we want to close the book on the Iowa game and move on to the offseason and talk about the next couple of weeks, which could shape Matt Rule's tenure at Nebraska with decisions involving helmets and headsets? All right, 41 past the hour. There's Jimmy. I'm Gary. It's the Gary Sharp Show on this first Monday of December. Glad to be back. Glad to see y'all. Let's get after it on 1620 The Zone. All right, welcome all the Iowa fans that have joined the stream that are listening this morning. How about those Iowa State Cyclones?
How about them?
Iowa State could be in the playoff before Iowa. And how many people would take what Matt Campbell's doing ahead of what Kirk Ferentz is doing?
Ooh,
Just a question. Just a question to be asked for all the Iowa people joining here, and that's absolute facts because Iowa State has won 10 games. They play Arizona State in the Big 12 championship game, and they could be in the playoff before Iowa. Who would have thunk it?
And come and goes becoming Maverick.
Who would have thought that? My gosh, that Matt Campbell, who has had a heck of a year with all of the injuries that they have had, and he has persevered and has stayed in Ames. And after they had a little gambling scandal, I thought, uh-oh. But they won 10 games, beat Kansas State on Saturday night. All right, welcome back in the Gary Sharp Show. Coming up a little bit later, Ben Audie, Evan Bland, and then a basketball guest. I think it's going to be Jacob. But if it wasn't going to be Jacob, it was going to be Wilson. But we'll talk hoops as well because it was an incredible weekend of sports wrapped up by snow football last night in Buffalo. The Bills clinched for the 5th straight year the AFC East. They clinched it in week 13. How bad is that division? If you are clinching in week number 13, I like watching from afar snow football. Yeah. I don't know that I'd like being at a game because the Kansas State-Nebraska game in Manhattan in 2000.
Just keep running the ball. You win the game.
Yes. Was not enjoyable in the fourth quarter when it just turned into a blizzard. I did not enjoy that. But from afar, I like watching it from the comforts of my couch.
Oh, absolutely.
The one thing I didn't like last night is I'm old school. I don't want the modern technology. I want old school Planet Hoth, where NBC superimposed the lines. You know what? Let us guess. Yeah. Let us guess where the lines are. Let's play old school snow football like we all did in the backyard.
Like the Cowboys-Dolphins Thanksgiving game. Where's the ball? I don't know. It's not in the end zone. I know that.
Yeah, was perfect. Leon Lett. Yeah. We didn't even know if he scored.
It actually was a touchdown.
But looking last night, they superimposed the lines like they did in the Browns-Steelers game. We are very blessed when it comes to our football that we have had 2 snow games in the last 10 days.
Yeah. And that may be it, especially all these damn domes that they're building.
All right, let's chat after this holiday break and everything that went on in the world of football and sports. 402-951-1620 on the 42-degree The Source hotline. We start this morning with Andrew. Good morning, Andrew.
Gary, how you doing?
Good, Andrew. How are you doing? You got the serious voice this morning.
No.
1 and 2 in Vegas got you shook a little bit?
Oh, they just, you don't realize how much you met. UConn and Creighton are kind of in the same boat.
Yeah.
You know, those players that are gone from last year aren't coming through the door again. And you realize how much you miss them. But, so Nebraska in this, going to the bowl game, they had a chance. And I feel like we have a choice between chicken salad and tuna salad right now.
Okay.
It sucks. It just sucks. It just sucks. I mean, I've been to New York, and that is just a hole. That is a hole. If we end up at that Pinstripes Mayo Bowl, is it the Mayo Bowl?
No, it's the Pinstripe Bowl. The Mayo Bowl is in Charlotte.
A little warmer.
Well, either one. I mean, it's like a bad egg salad sandwich. You just have to choke it down because you're hungry.
Damn.
So I've asked this of people because, you know, there's a lot of interest in going to a bowl game. I guess you could say, hey, bottom line this year, all I wanted was a bowl game, but I think you're kidding yourself. If you think 6-6 and just getting to a bowl game, you're like, hey man, this season I kind of like this. Does the site or the opponent matter the most?
You know, I'll throw another one out there.
Okay.
The date? What are we going to play in like 5 days?
Well, the one in Phoenix, which I think is least likely, is the 26th. The Pinstripe Bowl is the 28th.
That's a Friday.
Music City is the 30th, and then the Duke's Mayo Bowl is a unique one. That is January 3rd.
See, none of those are like major dates where everybody's going to be together. It just sucks.
Now,
it just sucks.
Yeah, the Music City one is, I mean, first of all, it's Nashville, and LSU looks like they're locked in from the SEC side. that is the only bowl game that day.
Here's another question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Will we have our defensive coordinator on the staff then?
That's a great question. What do you think? Do you think Tony White will be here, or will he be somewhere else not prepping for a bowl game?
I think he's gone, from what I hear. But
well, there is a lot of smoke.
There is a new show next week. Are you not telling me something, Gary?
But can I ask you this question? Why would he make a lateral move?
So what you're alluding to is the smoke that is out there where Florida State has reached out to Tony White. And Florida State would like to announce their defensive coordinator in the next 48 hours, is what I was told last night. And there are 3 candidates that they have reached out to, and Tony White is one of them. And I'm not fully sure on the other side of how reciprocal it is. That'd be a question for Tony, Andrew, because if you look at, he'd be walking into a situation, or whoever would be joining Mike Norvell, and Gus Malzahn just left UCF to be the play caller. Mike Norvell's going to be on the hot seat next year. And are you going to go to a program where it's one and done? And would that hurt your chances, which your ultimate goal is to be a head coach? I don't know. That'd be Tony's thing. I think I do know this. He is excited about next year's defense because it'll look a little bit different. They're going to turn it over a bit with some of the older guys, like the Bullock and the Robinson and the Nash, have got older guys that have given it to him, but they're going to be quicker next year. I don't know. I mean, it's been as well as Nebraska's defense has played at times, and how well they played on Friday. There has been a disconnect, and I think Matt Rule taking a vested interest more in defense this year than he did last year, and then trying to incorporate John Butler into the defensive side of the ball, where they had such a strong relationship with Evan Cooper, has not gone so well. And the back end hasn't played as well as we thought they were going to play. I don't know. I think there would probably be a list of reasons why that would make sense if Tony said them out loud. But initially, at first onset, just taking a job to go be a DC somewhere else, whether it be in the ACC, the Big Ten, the SEC, wouldn't make sense of where you want to go for your ultimate goal.
All righty. And what if he goes? Have you heard of any possible replacements?
I'm sure they would look internally first. It's it would come down to who wants to work for Matt Rule. And Rule's got connections all over football, but I think it wouldn't necessarily mean, they've got Rob Dvorak is a good internal candidate. John Butler has eyes on being a DC, but really, there was no connection between Matt Rule and Tony White when he hired him from Syracuse. So Rule, at least on that side of the ball, was willing to look outside. I don't know what his course of action would be, but if Nebraska had to make a couple of changes on their coaching staff, they would still have guys in place that could coach the bowl game. That wouldn't be one of the worries that I know just popped up on the stream. That answer your question,
okay.
Andrew?
That answers. Thank
right.
you. And I'll tell you one thing after watching Creighton basketball that really bothers me.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lost art. It's interior passing.
Oh, yes.
My God, is Creighton terrible at that?
Yeah. They're just a weird roster right now. Just there's pieces that they're trying to put together that don't seem like they fit. But they did shoot the 3-ball better in their last 2 games, so maybe that is something. But KU is going to be a handle on Wednesday night, as you know. Andrew, thank you for the phone call to kick off the week. We'll discuss more because the next couple of weeks, I think, are vitally important for Nebraska football and Matt Rule, because he's got some decisions to make on staff, because there are guys on Nebraska staff that are very attractive to the outside. This is a big week for coordinators. Whatever happens with Tony White, locking in Dana Holgorsen. So you have that taken care of, and then you let Holgorsen decide who he wants to work with on the offensive side of the ball, and you move forward. And then, of course, there's the portal. And then on Wednesday it's not National Letter of Intent signing day. It is signing a financial agreement. And Nebraska has a couple of targets out there that they're looking to flip. Yesterday was a huge flip day in college football. Cortez Mills is the one that Nebraska has been grinding on. The Oklahoma commitment at wide receiver that looks like Nebraska's done the work, that it's going to be an 11th hour. We got him. And that's in addition to a wide receiver room that doesn't have a lot of experience outside of Ja'Cory Barney that could possibly be returning next year. And then you've got the portal. Guys that are going to leave that you've already had discussions with that you know, guys that you've had discussions with that you want to stay in the program, and then guys you're going to go out and pursue. Like the next couple of weeks before you start bowl preparation could really shape the direction and the trajectory of where you're going, not only for 25, but beyond. All right, quick break. Jimmy's got an update on the other side. More on Nebraska-Iowa, on the season that was. If you think that the record reflected the performance, 6-6, I know it's easy to say, well, is this a success or failure? But how about this? Does the record reflect the performance of a 6-6 season that ended on Friday night against Iowa? And now we wait where the bowl destination will be. It's the Gary Sharp Show. Jimmy's got an update next on 1620 The Zone.
Connor Sejan goes nuts again at PBA for the second straight game, scoring 22 well, not at PBA, but you know what I mean. He scored 22 points on 6 of 8 shooting from three-point range. Going back to Wednesday, they won one. The Wisconsin transfer had made 12 of his past 23 attempts from 3 as Nebraska ball rolls North Florida 103-72. The Huskers, meanwhile, have awakened from their 5-game perimeter shooting slumber. The Huskers made 11 of 24 from downtown Sunday, scored 100 points against a Division I opponent for the first time in exactly 3 years. Hopefully everybody won something. Tacos, burgers, whatever they give out.
Nothing.
Nothing? Oh, considering it's the Big Ten, they could give out a suite for a football game for something like that. It doesn't happen that often.
They used to give out for if you hold opponent below an X amount of points. I think it was Runza.
Okay.
Back in the day.
Damn.
They haven't done that for a long time. They don't have anything close to, the Creighton with their season ticket holders and the Godfather's Pizza.
Oh, do it. Okay.
Hey, they should give out something. Connor Sejan is red hot.
Yeah.
They got 25.5 points in the last 2 games on average.
I think he's liking Lincoln.
Shooting 56% from the floor, 52% from beyond the arc. This, last year's Nebraska basketball team was an extremely likable team. This team is becoming very likable, I think, from the way they play. Very unselfish.
Mm-hmm.
But he's on a heater. I mean, that was don't discount that win yesterday, considering that it's falling before a Michigan State game. It's Thanksgiving. You're coming back from probably a day off on Thursday after beating South Dakota.
Yeah, they could have come out very sluggish.
Played well yesterday from start to finish.
Okay, Nebraska volleyball selected as the number 2 overall seed for the NCAA tournament. They'll host the first and second rounds as usual at Devaney this Friday and Saturday. The Huskers making their 43rd straight tournament appearance. That's impressive in itself. Hosting the first round for the 39th time, equally impressive, will open Friday at 7 against most hated rival Florida A&M, champions of the SWAC. The 4:30 match will feature Miami of the ACC and South Dakota State of the Summit League. Oh, they'll have a good turnout. Friday's winners will meet in the second round Saturday night at 7. Creighton Volleyball will host the opening weekend, but won't be one of the top 4 national seeds. Have no fear, though. They're still good. That could have created the possibility of 2 weekends here in the great city of Omaha. They'll play South Dakota in a first-round match Thursday at 7 at Sokol Arena. The other first-round match will be Florida State against Ole Miss. Oh, Lane Kiffin Bowl, 4:30. Second-round matches at Sokol, pitting Thursday's winners Friday at 7. In college football, the Big Ten fined Michigan and Ohio State $100,000 each Sunday for their football program's roles in the postgame melee following the Wolverines' stunning 13-10 upset at number 2 Ohio State. In a statement, the league said considers this matter concluded. Yeah, I'm sure. And we'll have no further comment. The league doesn't plan to suspend players for their roles in the fight or administer 10 lashes in the town square. Michigan and Ohio State officials said no individual discipline is being handed out by them at this time. Michigan said all our discipline was handed to Ohio State on the field. Iowa running back Caleb Johnson, you remember him? He entered the season as a reserve, but became a Doak Walker Award finalist. Well, he's declaring for the NFL draft. No surprise there. West Virginia fires football coach Neil Brown after 6 seasons. Too bad for all. They liked Neil Brown. Neil Brown liked them. It just didn't work out. The Mountaineers quit Saturday against Texas Tech. 52-15, they lost, leaving the Mountaineers 6-6 on the season. He received an extension after winning 9 games last season, but he went 37-35 during his tenure in Morgantown. No telling if the Mountaineers will accept a bowl bid. Some interesting names to be kept on, including former coach Rich Rodriguez. Could that happen? And
should have never left.
Yeah. Sometimes the grass isn't greener on the other side. I mean,
man,
except in bowl.
People forget Rich Rodriguez for a brief moment was the head coach at Michigan.
Yeah.
He left that. I was living in West Virginia when he was there. Man,
they were fun.
He was more popular than Joe Manchin, who was the governor.
Mm-hmm.
People love Rich Rod.
Should go back.
Steve Slayton, Pat White,
Pat McAfee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean they were. That was the height of Mountaineer football. I thought Neil Brown would work out. Remember, he was the head coach of Troy when they came in and beat Andrew Bunch.
Andrew, don't call me Jared Bunch.
That should have been. That was only the second game of the Frost tenure.
Yeah.
That should have been a warning sign because they overlooked Troy so bad.
Prepared for Troy Aikman.
And Troy came in here and beat him. And that kind of that win was kind of one of the reasons that Neil Brown became very popular among power schools. Yeah, I like him as a football coach.
They liked him too.
When he started talking about the fans and fans didn't show up at a place where they're pretty passionate about their football, you knew you were in trouble. And then you don't win. And then you finish with a thud.
Andy Kotelnicki will also be in the mix for that job. But can they say his name? You could say Rich Rod. Anyway, Neil Brown will make just under $10 million from WVU, so congratulations for the final 3 years of his contract. Hopefully an unlimited supply of pepperoni rolls. If you know, you know. Purdue has fired Coach Ryan Walters after 2 seasons. That's really too bad. And his tenure there at 5-19. That's no sarcasm. It really is. The Boilers went 1-11 this year, finished the season with 11 consecutive losses, including going winless to the Big Ten. Their season mercifully ended 66-0 at Indiana on Saturday in the snow. Shout out Tim Brando's voice. Get a hot toddy or two. Walters came to Purdue from his job as the defensive coordinator at Illinois. Prior to that, he had been defensive coordinator at Missouri. He went 4-8 his first season at Purdue, showed some promise, but then it just didn't happen. Finally, because we all need something to smile about on this snowy, cold Monday in this final week of the Gary Sharp Show, things have gotten so bad for the Jets and quarterback Aaron Rodgers that the future Hall of Famer's job security might now be in jeopardy. Could he be the new co-host? Ooh, 1 day shy of his 41st birthday, Rodgers played one of his worst games of the season. You hate to see it. 26-21, a loss to the Seahawks at MetLife Stadium, leading to a tepid postgame endorsement from interim coach Jeff Ulbrich, who's like, whatever, he's going to get me fired anyway. Ulbrich punted, not literally, that'd be weird, when asked to give an assessment of Rodgers' performance, which included a red zone interception, a game-changing interception for a touchdown in the second quarter. Ulbrich said he needed to watch the film before giving an evaluation. Nice save, buddy. Nice save. Get Ken O'Brien warming up in the bullpen. Try and save your season. Actually, just lose out and see if you can you tank for Cooper Flagg or Travis or Shador.
The race to the top to have the first pick is on. There's some bad football teams. Now, this was
of course, my team wins when you're supposed to start losing, as we predicted on the crossover.
But look who they were playing. That's one of the worst Giants teams I've ever seen.
That was rough.
But, this was a weekend in the NFL where there were 12 one-possession games, and we have one more to go. Mm-hmm. Cleveland's been off for 10 days.
They're in Denver.
They take on Denver. I think I'm getting older, so I'm saying nice things about rivals. I like how Denver's played the last 2 weeks. Denver's got an elite defense. Bo Nix has played pretty well. I don't see Cleveland and Jameis Winston winning in Denver tonight, but that's the Monday Night Football game that you'll hear here on The Zone. But 12 one-possession games in the NFL this weekend, and the Jets involved in one of those now has 9 straight losing seasons and 3-9, and Aaron Rodgers may be benched, may be cut, and may never play again. And Father Time, unfortunately, catches up to all of us. Aaron Rodgers and Mr. Tucker, who has not been the same since the incident in the AFC Championship game when Travis Kelce interrupted his warm-up. I'm going to stick with that. The Tucker has not been the same since that moment happened. And it was tough to watch yesterday, and he also cost a lot of us money with his continuous
struggles of Justin Tucker to Travis Kelce and Trailer. Yes, Taylor Swift. Did they ruin him?
No, not Taylor. Travis.
Okay. They're an extension of
one
another.
Father Time is unbeaten.
I know.
Tucker is one. Aaron Rodgers is the other. He's going to be 41 today. But like with Justin Tucker of the Ravens, who is going to go to the Hall of Fame, has been one of the greatest kickers in the NFL for a while.
Damn, that makes me sad.
He's become well, I do too, except for what he pulled last year. And I was happy to see that he struggled in the AFC Championship game. But he's become a liability.
Yeah.
I mean, the Ravens have sights on the Super Bowl. Lamar Jackson, who is an HOFer, was not the better quarterback yesterday. Jalen Hurts was. But Tucker you got to have the uncomfortable conversation. I know John Harbaugh supports him, and you want to give him the benefit of the doubt, but this has been a season-long thing. Like those conversations when some of the best players get a little bit older, it's like when you have to take the keys away from your parents. I mean, some of our parents, as they get older, they still want to drive because you know this.
Yeah.
I went through this. My mom had to do this with her mom. She always wanted to be in control, so driving a car was in control. And once you take that away from somebody that you're like, no, you can't drive, they feel like they've lost all control and they feel helpless because they're relying on somebody else to come and pick them up. They don't want to take an Uber. They don't have Ubers for gilfs. They don't have any of that kind of stuff.
You might be onto something.
But I remember like my grandma had like major pushback. So it was an uncomfortable conversation where you're like, yeah, you're not safe on the road for yourself, and you're not also safe on the road for other people.
You've seen Dodge. You don't want to drive on it.
So I got to take your keys away.
Oh, good. Take them. I hate driving.
Those are uncomfortable conversations. So when you get a little bit older and you've been at the top of your sport, like a Tucker and a Rodgers have, those are uncomfortable conversations because sometimes players in those roles don't know when to say no, like I'm done. Not everybody can go out after a Super Bowl championship or a world championship where they go out at the top of their sport when you get to be 41 years old.
Coaches, same thing when they should have maybe stepped out and then they stay a year or two too long. And talked about Tom Landry, and we were talking about other coaches who've stayed too long. So, yeah, wow, that makes me sad. Justin Tucker, damn, I get it.
We talked about Neil Brown. So Ryan Walters was fired yesterday as the head coach of Purdue.
That's still a good coach. It just wasn't a good situation. He may not be a head coach yet, but that's a good coach.
It is. I didn't like how he bashed Illinois out the door because nobody should bash Illinois. If there is a guy that knows how to coach in the Big Ten, it's the orange guy.
Yep.
Because not that orange guy, the orange guy that is in Champaign. He went 9-3.
Yeah.
Quietly, Illinois went 9-3. They went 9-3. There's a guy that knows how to coach in the Big Ten. Now, what I didn't like, because Ryan Walters used one of Bert's big years to bump to the Purdue job, is he kind of hammered Illinois on the way out.
Which that can come back to bite you later.
And Illinois has been fine. Again, they went 9-3. They went 9-3.
They could
pretty
finish
good,
with a 10-win
pretty
season.
good year. But he went 5-19, and when you are a defensive coach, which he was the DC at Illinois before he got the job at Purdue, that side of the ball needs to be your strength. Okay, that needs to be the best part of your unit. And then you're like, man, if I make a right hire at coordinator, which remember after the Nebraska won in West Lafayette back in September, he fired Graham Harrell. But if your strength is your weakness, you're in trouble. They allowed 66 points twice this year at Purdue, including being just absolutely embarrassed by Indiana on Saturday night. And they, 3 times they were shut out. What's another number I heard yesterday? Their last 11 games, they were outscored on an average of 44-13.
And they look like they had no interest in being there in any of those games.
But this also comes back to, if you think that Ryan Walters is a good football coach, why don't we ever hold athletic directors accountable for making the wrong hire? I look at NFL. There could be 7 to 10 jobs open in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Detroit Lions could lose their OC and DC. The Bears job is open. The Saints job is open. There's going to be many more that are going to be open. But owners don't know how to select head coaches.
Shout out Jerry Jones. Good morning.
They don't. If you get one, it's usually a homer.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't, it's usually a failure.
What's to say about Brett Veach again?
But athletic directors, like the athletic director at Purdue, so you lose Jeff Brom. And Brom started to get Purdue football headed in the right direction. Okay, they had an identity. They were sending guys to the league. They were beating the teams they should beat, i.e. Nebraska, and they were competing with the teams that were above them.
And they'd upset some, like Ohio State several years ago.
But this is why, and remember, they also won in Iowa City a couple of years back. So Brom goes home to Louisville, and then I look at what they're going to do with that job. And your stadium isn't always full. They do have a really nice football facility that's right across the street, but it's a basketball school. But we have seen at basketball schools, you can compete. Okay, you can keep your head above water in football, but once Brom got them to a level, you couldn't go back. Here's where I had a problem with the hire. And remember, Ryan Walters was like,
he was a hot name.
Is he going to go back to his alma mater? Is he going to go to Colorado? Or does he want to be the guy where Dion doesn't have success and then he comes in, he cleans up, and he's an alum and he's praised and all of that? But he jumped on a job at Purdue when Purdue should have never hired him, because Purdue had established an identity of an offensive school. They were recruiting to that. That's what they were known for. The talent on campus were offensive guys, and they strayed from their identity with a hiring. Where have we seen that before? But we very rarely hold athletic directors' feet to the fire with bad hires. It seems like they get to hire multiple guys.
It's not till they miss on multiple guys that they finally look at the AD.
Exactly. Now, okay, this is one miss. I think the athletic director at Purdue did hire Braum, but he missed on this. You can't miss on the next one, but how appealing is that job? Like, their recruiting has cratered. You're in the Big Ten. You are one of the worst teams in the Big Ten Conference.
And that gap gets bigger now with the new dynamics and the new league. And
exactly.
You can't screw it up.
The killer instinct Dan Lanning and the recruiting machine that is Oregon is not walking through the door. Some young guy that's going to go, oh, that Purdue job, I got to have it. They'll be very selective and they'll go, I don't know about that Purdue job. So are you going to get the next MAC guy? Because they had the string of hiring MAC guys. Mm-hmm. Who's the hot coach in the MAC right now? Tim Albin from Ohio, former Nebraska assistant. I mean, Ohio football, death taxes in Ohio football is going to be playing for a MAC championship. But now to Ryan Walters. If I'm in the Big Ten Conference and the guy knows ball on the defensive side, hiring him at that time for Purdue, probably too much, overwhelming. And he made some missteps along the way. And Purdue pulled the ripcord quicker, and they had to.
Might be good for Ryan Walters in the long run.
Yeah, exactly. Because he was just swimming upstream. You're 5-19 in 2 years. But if I'm in the Big Ten Conference and I have an opening on my defensive staff, why wouldn't you look at Ryan Walters? Whether he tinkled all over the Illinois program when he was leaving that helped him get the Purdue job, the guy has a pretty good defensive mind, and he's been a defensive coordinator in this league, and he's now been in the Big Ten for multiple years. If I had an opening on my defensive staff, I would entertain Ryan Walters because he knows the league. And knowing this league is half the battle. You know, what adjustments will like Oregon make? Washington, USC, UCLA, now that they know the league. You've got to know the league. You got to respect the Big Ten. You got to put a staff together that can win in the Big Ten and knows how to win in the Big Ten. That's why I like Illinois. Brett Bielema from Wisconsin and now at Illinois has won in the Big Ten. He knows how to win. Is he ever going to be playing in Indianapolis, or is he ever going to be on the cusp of a playoff? Who knows? But
they won't suck.
Who wouldn't take a 9-3 season? Mm-hmm. But you have to learn, you have to know how to win in the Big Ten and what it takes. And also look in the mirror with staffs and go, is that guy good enough to coach in the Big Ten? Because it's not just head coaches in this league that are good. And it's not just coordinators in this league that are good. It's across the board. Lots of money are paid to staffs. And so the best of the best are starting to trickle into the Big Ten. And if Ryan Walters, if I'm a school in the Big Ten that has an opening, I would certainly look at Ryan Walters on the defensive side of the ball. Maybe not as my coordinator, but I would look at him if he had an interest in being a position coach, because the guy knows the Big Ten and his position is defensive backs. All right, 20 past the hour. Ben Otte from the BA Coaches Show coming up at the top of the hour. Evan Bland as well. But back to the phones we go. Here is Gary. Happy Thanksgiving. Good morning, Gary.
Hey, good morning, guys. This big red 24/7 guy has not been able to let go of Friday.
That's okay. Let it out.
Okay. First point is, with the weather, with the history of that game, the pass rushing was starting to get more aggressive with Dylan. I'm starting to believe that Mr. Rule is more of a talker than a thinker. Why would you not take that game into overtime and take your chances? One, because of the weather, the field goal position would be a lot closer instead of trying to put Dylan again in an unsuccessful position there at that critical point of the game, and try not to take that into overtime. Lastly,
that's a good question. I will go one before Dylan's fumble, takeaway, whatever was ruled, is I would have been a little skittish that, and you know, you didn't score in the second half.
Right.
Is when Emmett Johnson fumbled. Now, he fortunately got back on it, but it was just a couple of plays before the final fumble. I probably would have been a little bit skittish and then said, yeah, let's get this to overtime. But I think, Gary, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit later. You and I have talked about this when you called in.
Yeah.
I think the whole damn chasing three was an albatross this year.
Yes.
They talked about it. They thought about it. And you know what? You're not built to win close games right now. Why keep bringing it up? You know what? I like chasing being up 13. I like chasing being up 20. I think the chasing 3 motto this year was a misstep by Matt Rule in this football program because they talked about it and 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 they never fixed it. And if you are not built and have the DNA to win close games, you know what? You know how you get away from that? You don't put yourself in that position. And you have the killer instinct where you're always looking to score. You're always pressing the narrative. So at the end of the game, when you get there, you're either taking a knee or you're running an offense to run out the clock.
Thank you. Last thing, I'll be having my right knee replacement done on the 18th of December, so I'll take this opportunity right now because I don't know how my mobility is going to be to get to a phone. Have a Merry Christmas. I love your show. It's great that you allow us to call in and voice our either happy times or angry times. But again, enjoy the holidays. Great year for you guys. And I guess I'll try and take a deep breath and hope that we can go to a decent bowl game.
So hold on here. And first of all, I know you are running through the bingo card of surgeries.
Yeah.
Are they not going to give you a cell phone? Are you going to be? Are you on a landline right now?
Yes. Now,
do you own a cell phone?
No, yes, I do.
Okay.
And I'm unfortunately at age 67. Even my kids still tease me today. I'm not really technology savvy, but because of we're being in whatever put me in on this knee surgery as far as a protection, it's a little slower to get to the phone.
Okay.
So for probably the first 2 weeks of rehab, maybe 3, I'll probably lay low. But you ain't gonna get rid of me. Sorry.
Hey,
and we're still gonna make that golf date happen sometime this summer.
We will. Hey, who by the way is giving you the Christmas present to have knee replacement surgery?
My old man body.
All right, Gary, be good. Thank you for the call.
Yeah, you take care. Bye-bye.
Means he's done some living. You gotta get that knee replaced. Good luck to him.
That's painful.
Yeah.
I know somebody in their 80s that just had that, and they're up and they're mobile, but she's in a great deal of pain. And she had her surgery, I think, back in September.
Oh, wow.
She's also somebody that they don't allow to drive. It's getting lancy. We had a discussion about her driving on Thursday night. Off and running. We'll get some emails and some
leftover bag.
Tweets. I think we're getting a kind of a consensus on the whole chasing 3. And this is not after the fact when you have another 1-score loss on the ledger, which Nebraska's now finished the year 1-5. 4. Geez, I used to be able to rattle these off, and then they just blend together. Last 26 1-score games since 2021, starting in 2021, I believe. Nebraska's 4-22. I think the chasing 3, I get it. For Nebraska to move forward, they have to be able to, in late games, have killer instinct and make plays when plays are there to be made offensively, defensively, special teams. That's been a hindrance to the program. That's the mental hurdle. That's the adversity you have to overcome. But that motto, I think, just hung on this team. Instead of hammer down, keep scoring. Who cares if it's 44-25? We still won the football game. Hey, if we get into a close game, every game's going to be close. Not every game has to be close. You can control what you can control. Sometimes you can't, and it's a close game, and Friday night happens. But I think the chasing 3 was, I think it strangled the certain guys and certain aspects of this football team. All right, 26 past the hour. Ben Audie, Evan Bland, and basketball guy. Not sure who that'll be. Have we got a confirmation?
I will send him a text.
Right.
I hope he's awake.
Biggs is supposed to be on at 9. I think he still will be on at 9. I think his conflict will be over by then. All right, so that's all still to come. That's the lineup brought to you by the roofers at John Higgins Weather Guard. There's Jimmy. I'm Gary. It's the Gary Sharp Show on this Monday, back from Thanksgiving on 1620 The Zone. believe that the Heisman ballots and email starts today. I think the vote, I do believe the voting opens up today and closes next Tuesday. And for some, the Heisman Trophy has been wrapped up. Don't ask Brett Ciancia, Pick Six Previews. He'll tell you that nope. And he's a fellow voter like myself. That Travis Hunter has wrapped it up. Would if you flip roles, if Travis Hunter was playing for Boise State and Ashton Jeanty was playing for Colorado, would Jeanty, the season that he's having, which is one of the greatest seasons that a running back in FBS history has had, would he be the runaway winner?
Absolutely, because he'd have ESPN and Mark Jones behind him.
Yeah. We have to talk about Colorado and Ohio State have their own announcers.
Yeah.
Mark Jones loves him some Colorado.
It's like the NFL in the 60s. Ray Scott did the Packers. And
yeah, Gus had a rough day on Saturday. I thought he was going to break down.
But they're world famous. How could they lose?
When the world famous Ohio State Buckeyes lost.
That was troll. The world famous Michigan Wolverines.
What did we think about? And listen, Gus is have met him numerous times.
Great guy.
Very, very approachable. Very, very nice. But Father Time, he can't see that well.
I remember you saying that last year.
He started to lose his voice. And he's working with a guy. I think Joel Klatt is one of the best in the business. And also
he may be the best.
A great guy away from the booth, even though he is a former Colorado quarterback.
Yeah.
But what did we think about Gus Johnson's line as Michigan wins that game? And people are stunned. And this is before all the crap that happened at midfield. Is, what do you say? Sharon Moore says, this time we didn't cheat. Take that. Yeah. That was his line. That was kind of interesting to drop at that point.
Even Paul Keels must have been like, "Oh, that's kind of mean."
But I always think about where did that come from? They are on Zooms with coaches during the week, and there's stuff they talk about that makes it to air, and then there's other stuff that they don't. So was that a discussion about we will beat Ohio State this year, and nobody's going to say that we could cheat? Because that was a weird line to drop in that moment as Michigan shocked everybody by beating Ohio State as a 20.5-point underdog.
Can't hear Keith Jackson going, did not cheat. Let's go down to Swanee.
See, we were just angry all weekend. Mark Jones doing the Colorado game, Gus Johnson doing the world famous Ohio State Buckeyes. Whatever NBC
Saturday I was angry.
Whatever NBC was presenting, whether it be Colt McCoy, completely botching the Stevens field goal. The angle that they had that they showed on TV was, there was a brief second where I thought that he had missed the field goal. That was a horrible angle that they showed the final play of that game. Then the weird explanation. So when Iowa downed the ball at the 1, they didn't explain it well enough of why the ball was at the 1-yard line. Mm-hmm. And then also understand from friends that were at the game, like that play, the muffed punt where Shavers in chaos thought that somebody had touched it. Iowa gets the ball, but then it, on screenshots, you can see that Iowa touched it first. A couple of buddies of mine that were in Iowa City, whether they were up in the press box or in the stands, they said that on, I don't think they call it they might call it Hawk Vision. They used to call it iVision when they first had video boards at Kinnick Stadium. That was back when old Pops was taking me to Iowa games.
There's a little tiny Mitsubishi Diamond.
And it wasn't the great. It was kind of like the Pixel.
It's like, hey, it's better than what we had before.
But they were saying there were better replays in the stadium than there were on TV. How is that possible?
Yeah.
Yeah, they saw the final play where, God dang it, an Urbandale guy.
I thought of that too.
And his parents should be kicked out of Urbandale. Takes the ball away from Dillon. They said the replay in stadium was much different than the one they were showing on TV. that the one in the stadium showed it more of he ripped it away from him, where on TV it was still, they didn't have I guess they were showing, what I'm trying to get to is I was told that in stadium they had multiple angles of that play where it looked like NBC had two, and then NBC like zoomed in to see where the ball was as Dillon was going down. But NBC had, that was
I caught that at the end. My paraphrasing of what I said is, "Are you effing defecating me?" And then I was just not happy.
Excuse me?
I mean, I can't say the other thing, but yeah.
Thought from the weekend of football involving Ohio State and Nebraska. Who would have benefited more from the first guy to throw for over 4,000 yards in FBS this year? Ohio State or Nebraska? Because that's what Kyle McCord did. And Kyle McCord for Syracuse, hell of a year.
Hell of a night the other night.
Hell of a year for a Matt Rule connection. Mm-hmm. And Coach Brown at Syracuse, they go 9-3. They upset Miami.
Yeah.
They have put Miami's playoffs hopes kind of now back into the 40-60 range. But Kyle McCord threw for over 4,000 yards, leads an upset on the day that Ohio State gets beat. But remember, he also, before he went to Syracuse, was almost in at Nebraska. So who would have benefited more from having Kyle McCord this year, Ohio State or Nebraska? If you are going along the lines of DR15, should have had a quote-unquote Patrick Mahomes redshirt year before he actually played, which I disagree with. I think there will be a benefit from Dillon playing as a freshman and playing every game and the lessons that are going to be learned. That's why I say when anybody poses the question, was this season a success? Initially, they made a bowl game. 6-6 after a 5-1 start. But you might not be able to answer that question until next year from lessons that are learned, whether it be by the head coach or the quarterback, to say, you know what? The way we lost, the things we learned, what we did differently, we learned from, and that benefited us in 2025. All right, couple of emails. Zach says about the Chasing 3 videos. It's a joke. They only release those videos after wins. Another illustration of a soft program. Joey writes in, first off, who cares about a pregame handshake?
Sent that in during traffic reports.
Programs don't like each other. No need to be a PC about it. Has no outcome on the game. Nebraska is having an uproar over handshakes while Michigan-Ohio State game needed pepper spray to clear the field. What do we even talk? What do we even
pepper spray? But they used it.
Shouldn't those cops be like put on the carpet?
Yeah. Can't be using pepper spray there.
The 2 straight years that Michigan has drawn pepper spray.
Can't blame Connor Stallions now.
So Joey and I are let's worry about the results and less about the moot stuff that doesn't affect anything. If you are still hanging on the handshake thing, you are ignoring the fact that Nebraska lost in Nebraska manner and they finished 6-6. But back to sports and stuff. How did North Florida beat Georgia Tech and South Carolina the way they did? I went yesterday expecting a good game. Nebraska crushed them. I think it might be more about Nebraska.
Well, isn't it a good game if you're a Nebraska fan?
Hey,
looks good to me.
That's a good win yesterday. Nebraska controlled that game, and it could have been a trap game. The crowd wasn't bad. I was there. It wasn't bad, but it's a Sunday in the afternoon. It's after Thanksgiving. It's against North Florida. Not as many students are there. Didn't affect Nebraska. They came to play right away. That was an impressive win. And now they get Michigan State on Saturday. One more email here, and then we'll get to John. Let's see here. No, let's go to Terry. Here's Terry's email. Hi, Gary. Hi, Terry. Someone mentioned Sooner Magic Friday and overreaction compared it to Iowa. There was no Sooner Magic. They had just better players, and NU ended the magic when they got better players. Yeah, it's cliche to say, but what if Nair makes the catch? I have responded to Iowa JD this morning. If he makes the catch, or even earlier in the game, instead of going to the sidelines, cuts it up and goes 2 more yards for a first down. I think 1 catch on 4 targets was his night. If he makes that catch, he is still running. He right now is running down I-80. He is running by wind turbines, and there is no one is near him. That is a huge, huge play in the game. Of the ups and downs that Dylan had at times on Friday night, if you make a throw like that, if you make a throw on money, and the play is designed and you're wide open and you call the right play against that coverage, that ball's got to be caught. There is no excuse for that ball being dropped. And it looks even worse on replay. If he makes that catch, the tone is completely different this weekend. We're not even talking about a handshake. We're not talking about Matt Rule walking around the field and he just happened to walk where the side of the field where Iowa was warming up and he just walked on the sidelines. Do people not remember Dion? Dion came out and made a full lap and it was like following the Beatles. And he walked right by Nebraska specialists. Did Buschini pick up the football and throw it at Dion? No.
He'd have picked it
Come
off.
on.
Ran it back for a touchdown.
The special team center makes a good snap. Little details. God, I love me some Marco Ortiz. Where is Marco Ortiz and how come he's out of eligibility? I think Terry means Garcia Castaneda takes one step back and catches a punt. Any of the 4 to 5 missed tackles on the Johnson run. Ifs, ands, buts. You have to deal with reality. Teams that are average, that are 500, they'll play well for a while, but for 60 minutes, they can't play a full 60-minute game. And there's going to be 4 or 5 plays, 4 or 5 minutes in a game where things don't go your way. You have to battle adversity, whether it be on the Johnson play where he's a big-time running back. And any other year, and look at the running backs in college football, whether it be in Boise State, Arizona State, or Iowa. Big-time running backs this year in college football. And I think Caleb Johnson will get some votes. He'll be like in the 3rd slot from some ballots. And I wouldn't roll my eyes. He's a really good player. He's done it at Iowa. He's going to the NFL. He announced it yesterday. And he makes, for a program that has no passing game this year, for him to have over 1,000 yards after contact is
like
unbelievable.
2,000.
Unbelievable. But there's adversity on that play. Nebraska had tackled pretty well all night. John Bullock had one of his better games. And on that play, he doesn't make a tackle. And Nebraska misses some tackles, and there was a block in the back and there was a hold. There's adversity. Scores touchdown. It's a 500 football team that has those moments where they can't respond. And it's just one thing in the little details that, we're not going to be able to recover. Terry finishes, if one of those plays changes, Nebraska wins, players make plays. We don't have those guys on the current roster. We're an average team with players and a 500 record. Facts are facts. Not here to play the what-if game. The facts are Nebraska finished 6-6. And if you think that they were better than 6-6 or they are who they are, they can't be 6-6 anymore. They just can't. All right, Ben Oddie coming up at the top of the hour. Here is John on the 42 Degree The Source hotline. Good morning, John.
Good morning, gentlemen. Thanks for taking my call.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I've started to build my Christmas list. I don't know how far down the road you guys are, but top of my list, a new special teams coordinator, because that's where that game flipped. That's my number one thing. Second, no more apologies from the Big Ten for official screw-ups. Those two start off with that. And I don't know, nobody's talking about it, but at the end of the second quarter, after Nebraska got their touchdown, that kickoff, that Iowa player threw himself into the end zone, and then he scooped the ball into his arms from the half-yard line, and that is a safety.
Yeah, that was the explanation wasn't very good on TV.
And the punt, the muffed punt, that has to be confirmed because that is not a fumble. If you can't confirm that Nebraska touched that ball, then you can't give the ball to the opposing team, because when a team punts, they're willingly saying, I'm giving you the ball. So it has to be confirmed. And they said the ruling on the field stands. It has to be confirmed. Iowa needed a lot of help. Nebraska gave it to them. But come on, let's get some of these calls right. Have a good morning, guys.
John, thanks for the call. It's the risk-adverse strategy. That's who you are. You play it safe. You let other teams make mistakes, and then you pounce on them, whether it be mistakes that are of their own doing or mistakes that are helped somewhere else. That's how it works. That's what Iowa is. I mean, you can't fault them. Everybody in that program knows what their identity is. There are very few games during the course of the year where Iowa's going to take it from teams that are similarly built. And the way that game was shaping up the line of scrimmage, you can't tell me that Iowa was better on the line of scrimmage than Nebraska.
Yeah.
They were just and
they didn't panic.
When a play had to be made or a break was given to you, they pounced on it. And they ended up kicking a game-winning field goal. That's who Iowa is. Iowa's Iowa. Nebraska is Nebraska. And until they prove otherwise, that's what Nebraska is going to be. Until they find that killer instinct, whether it be in a helmet or on a headset, the back to the chasing three thing. I look at Dan Lanning and hat tip to Oregon. They've come into the Big Ten. I don't know if you've seen what Dana Altman's doing. Oregon just won the Players Era tournament out in Vegas. They look pretty good. Football is rolling. They win on Saturday night against Penn State. They're the number 1 seed. They're recruiting like crazy. They had a monster day yesterday of flipping guys.
Tons of money.
And they got a head coach who he's young, he's got swag, he's got the swoosh behind him, and he's got a killer instinct. Mm-hmm. Every time you hear Dan Lanning talk, they are talking about destroying teams. Now, they have the personnel to do that, and when they put the foot on the gas, they can do it, but they never talk about chasing three and winning close games. They talk about humiliating their opponents by running up the score, continuing to run up the score. Now, in games that have been attention convention, they've won. I mean, look at the game against Wisconsin. They didn't play well. Wisconsin defensively played pretty well in that game. Oregon still found a way to win.
Fourth quarter took
but that's an odd result. I mean, look at Ohio State. They won another close game. But most of the time, Oregon is looking to destroy you. And they'll run up the score, and they don't care. And they got a coach that's got the killer instinct. That's not only the dudes that make plays when plays are there to be made that are difference makers, but also just across the board, a killer instinct. We're not playing to chase three. We're not playing to be in a close game. We're playing so a lot of people can play. You like the UTEP game? That was kind of fun. Let's make sure in a Big Ten game, all 74 guys can play. All right, Ben Otte, Evan Bland coming up the next hour. It's the Gary Sharp Show with Jimmy on this Monday, 2nd of December on 1620 The Zone.
1620 The Zone, proud to team with the United States Marine Corps. Shout out TC and Toys for Tots for Stuff the Truck 2024. December 6th and 7th, that's this week. Stop by the 1620 The Zone studio parking lot. Stuff the Truck with new unwrapped toys for area children. All donations will support Toys for Tots. Can't make it to the event? Donations can be dropped off at our office during business hours, Monday to Friday, 8 to 5. Through Tuesday, December 10th. So that's next week. Sponsored by Woodhouse Chevy and Molina Healthcare of Nebraska. More details online at 1620thezone.com/stuff the truck. One of my favorite deals. And you can always count on it being cold and windy, but that should not stop you from coming.
Friday and Saturday, really cool thing we do. That's one of the best things we do at NRG Media. So hopefully you will participate and be part of all of our fun here on Friday and
I'll be here
Saturday.
I enjoy it. I'm not just saying that. Oh, you're just saying that because you work for them. No, I really do enjoy it.
I will be participating from afar. I will be in Sacramento, California this weekend.
Nice beam team.
I will be. Yes, we will be lighting the beam. But unfortunately, we lost to your team last night. Wemby went for a triple W.
Yeah.
Sacramento is in a world of hurt. I think Mike Brown might be in trouble.
Oh, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's a Spurs. That's a champion.
Hey, 46 got you into the play-in last year.
Better win
Let's
50.
see. Right now, Sacramento's 9-12. I think they're 9-12.
Spurs doing nicely, so I got something to look forward to.
Yes. Ben Oddie coming up here in a little bit. One of the things is we now transitioned at offseason with a bowl game announcement coming up. Probably will know more a little bit later in the week, all the behind-the-scenes stuff and the pecking order that goes on. But there is, Wednesday is a day that you sign a financial letter of agreement. Then you have the portal that opens up 1 week from today. There could be some movement on the staff this week, but you have to solidify your coordinator spots this week and then address the urgency on special teams because you're going to need a punter. You're going to need to find a long snapper because you probably found your PK1 going into spring in John Hull with Tristan Alvano redshirting this year. He'll come back. We'll see what he's like. But I would ride with John Hull going into the spring, and I would not look back until he gives you a reason to look back. But you have to address the urgency of quit doing it to yourself when it comes to special teams. But think about this. What if what Nebraska is doing on special teams actually is directed by the head coach? Ben Oddie from the BA Coaches Show joins us next on the Gary Sharp Show on 1620 The Zone.
We went out there. The captains went out there. We usually shake hands. Wish everybody good luck. They didn't reach out their hands. So that was a little weird. And then our guys are warming up, doing our pregame, and their head coach walked through the warm up. So we immediately knew, what type of game this was. So after the game, because they didn't want to shake our hands before the game, I went up to their head coach and shook his hand. Told him good game.
And being some of those seniors, and this just happening again against Iowa, right? Like last year, the way it ended, especially, kind of to Sam's point, when you play the way you played, like some of the defensive kids to play the way they played and have to watch the other team storm the field, that's frustrating. Some of the young players might be discouraged. I don't, that's frustrating. It just is, it's just where we're at. And you know what I mean? As dumb as that sounds, we have to get better.
That's Jay Higgins for Iowa after the game on Friday night, and Matt Rule after the game on Friday night. Let's welcome in, kicking off the 8 o'clock hour. Welcome in, Ben Audie from the BA Coaches Show. All right, season's over, 6-6. Friday night is over. Twitter meltdowns are over, I would hope. I think we got to move on from what happened on Friday night. We got 361 days before Nebraska and Iowa play again. Good morning, my friend.
Good morning. How you doing today?
I'm doing, you know what? I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. I want to start here because 6-6, your record is who you are. Some people will doubt that. Others are in agreement with me, but I think this was a average football team that had a different vibe in the last 3 weeks. Do you think that the record at 6-6 reflects the performance for the 2024 version of Nebraska football?
I think that's a very good question, and I guess I have to say yes, just because, when you take it at 6-6, exactly 500, we had a great start to the year and then a pretty crappy finish to the year. So I do think that 6-6 is a direct reflection on how we are. It just seemed to be a very inconsistent year, in my opinion, and I guess 6-6 is where we're at right now.
Is there momentum? Is there a part of the program that has momentum, you think, that'll go into a bowl game with practices and probably play a fairly good opponent?
I sure hope so. I do think so, but it's hard for me to say definitively, I guess, just because I felt like we definitely had the momentum, and I feel like even if we would have lost on Friday, they're still having that momentum potentially, but it's the way that they lost again that kind of gets me, if that makes any sense.
No, it does.
It's heartbreaking fashion again, doing it to yourself, but I do definitely think there is some real momentum. It definitely seems to have the potential to be a very good recruiting week for Matt Rule. That seems to be something that kind of trending in that direction. I definitely think if we can get Dana Holgorsen locked up, long term, I think that would be a good momentum builder. And I do think there is momentum. Going to a bowl game is something that this program has needed. And for the extra practices and all that, and just to get that kind of stigma out of there. So I do think there is positive momentum, but that's a thing. I don't know that for sure. A week ago, I felt like there definitely was. Now I'm just feeling like there probably is.
Isn't this an interesting switch? Because the defense, you can't waste a defensive performance like that from Friday night. But what we're talking about with some potential flips are offensive guys, and Dana Holgorsen shows up. So the momentum would be on offense where probably the strength of this team was on defense. Doesn't that seem a little odd? I'm not saying you're wrong because I agree with you, but doesn't it seem a little odd if you're answering the question of momentum going into the offseason?
No, I definitely agree with you. It is a little odd. And next season, it's weird. I would be a little bit more worried about the defense. I guess we'll see what happens with Tony White going forward. But yeah, I do agree with you. That is a little bit odd because it seems like all the momentum right now is with the offense, in my opinion.
Let's talk about the defense. What'd they do so well, except for a 72-yard touchdown pass?
Yeah, that is like you said, wasting such a great defensive effort. That is what has been mega frustrating for me personally, is my big key to the game has just been hey, control the line of scrimmage. I think you're going to win that game. Right? I just kept saying it. I said, I know every coach in America says it at every level of football. Go to middle school football. They're going to give you the cliche, control the line of scrimmage. But I really did feel like this game was going to be decided. Hey, defensively, if Nebraska can control the line of scrimmage and contain the rushing attack, they're definitely going to win this game. And what's frustrating to me is they did that.
Yep.
They did pretty much, except for the one play on the swing pass or whatever it was, except for one play, they completely contained Caleb Johnson for the most part. They controlled the line of scrimmage, and then they still found a way to lose. That's what kills me, I guess, is just self-inflicted wounds. And defense did a fantastic job. John Bullock had a pretty good game. Again, outside of that one play, he filled gaps amazingly. The linebacking core as a whole, but the defensive line played out of their mind, just controlling that line of scrimmage, spilling everything they needed to spill, and then linebackers doing their job and cleaning up.
Ben Otte from the BA Coaches Show joining us. Let's talk about offense. Whether you want to talk about offense that unfortunately wasn't able to find any points in the second half. They left points out there and opportunities, but from the personnel that you know that should be available next year, with what Dana Holgorsen tried to do in 3 games, for how guys look different and there was a sense of purpose on offense, what do you think, without adding bodies, what do you think the identity of this offense will be in 2025 if we're going off the line that everybody that is available to come back will come back, and that includes Dana?
That's also a very good question. I would believe that I think maybe it stays similar, but I do think we see a little bit more quick game that we didn't see a lot until Holgorsen got there. I'd expect to see more, quick slants, push routes, things like that, of just, hey, make the read super easy on the quarterback. And we did see, more of a transition to that. I do think that ultimately, I don't think it's going to be a complete Mike Leach style air raid. I definitely do not expect that, because I do think you still need to run the football in the Big Ten. And if you just look at Dana Holgorsen's teams, they're not all, they tend to run the football at least very effectively. So I do think that there's still going to be a decently strong run game. I think Emmett Johnson really showed through the last few games that he is the dude there. He's the dude. I like the things that Dowdell can come in and do as a nice changeup, but Emmett Johnson is the guy that needs to be getting a bulk of the carries, and I think Dana Holgorsen sees that. And the biggest thing that I see that Dana Holgorsen has come in and done is he's just decided, hey, when we have the playmakers, we need to find ways to get them the ball. And he's done that very well. So I expect to see more of the same of that, and just making life on Dylan Raiola as easy as possible. That's the biggest thing. I think the biggest thing he's came in and done this year is he's made Dylan Raiola's job a lot easier.
But I look at some of the throws that were there, and it was we had glimpses of what Dylan could be, Ben, on Friday night, and then we had glimpses of what Dylan is right now. And he continued to choose the hard throw over the easier throw. I mean, I think if I'm a wide receiver in this offense with Dana Holgorsen coordinating it, I'm in love, because I thought in the last 2 games, the route trees that they have put in are being run better, and guys are even more open than they were even in the Satterfield. It's just, how do you make the transition from Dylan of, you say, hey, help Dylan, take stuff off his plate, but how does Dylan help himself, where, this, Ben, we don't always need the splash play, we just need the solid smart play.
Oh, I 100% agree with you. I think the biggest thing is going to be coming into the off season and going in through spring ball, having the consistent, and I mean this not as a shot at anyone, Dana Holgorsen is a way more accomplished offensive coordinator than what we've had. I'll put it that way. And I definitely think that he knows. I feel much more comfortable if we can get him locked up, locked in long term, at least for next year, being able to come in, have a whole off season, because it's going to be a big thing, quarterback coaching. We have a lot of film this year. Let's be real. We have a lot of film of guys being open and not being able to get them the ball. There were several plays. like even on that first drive where I know we ended up with 3 points, on that third down, like Thomas Spadoni was wide open. And on that mesh route, he was just sat. He ended up sitting. It was a mesh sit, and he ended up sitting, and we could end up with first down, and who knows what happens after that. And there were just several plays throughout the game that were missed, and that's going to be fairly typical, I guess, of a young quarterback. But I do think just coming in, having the consistency of a very good offensive coordinator who's going to put a focus on making Dylan's job easy, you're going to be able to have the whole offseason and whole spring ball of focusing on getting the ball to your playmakers. Here's where your easy read's going to be. And I think fixing the footwork and the eyes of Dylan Raiola, which have improved over the last 3 weeks, but I do expect that to get a lot better under Dana Holgerson. And I don't know, maybe we'll see some different coaching. I don't know. But I definitely do think that's something that's going to need to get addressed. I agree with you.
What about pocket presence?
Ooh, yeah, that is something that definitely needs to end up being addressed. There were pocket presence and honestly just the ball control in that pocket too. I know everyone wants to talk about that last fumble, obviously, because that was the one that ended up costing us. But there were several times throughout that game where just getting hit in the blind side. A lot of times, again, it's bad footwork sometimes too. And it's been a thing throughout the year of the pocket presence not being good. But I also will throw in some ball security on that too, because he fumbled a few balls that game that ended up being recovered by him. But that is definitely something that needs to get worked on. And again, I think good offense coordinator, we get some really good quarterback coaching, and maybe Glenn Thomas is that guy. I just need to see more of it.
Did you find it interesting? So, that's a question moving forward is who has got, who do you marry Dylan to? Do you marry him to Dana? But then, part of the threesome is Glenn Thomas. Did you catch on the sidelines? Dylan came over to the sidelines and Dana wasn't happy with a part of the play that wasn't executed. Glenn Thomas was right there, but it was Dana that was talking to Dylan. So as they all work together, because Dylan needs to be more than just fine. And I think having 13 games under his belt will be ideal, but you've got to learn from the ups and the downs and the good and the bad. There's the other part, as you address the pocket awareness, what about foot speed? Because there's really no element of a quarterback run game. He's not going to be running the triple option, but just to have a hint of that. Is that going to be in the offseason schematic? You try and, he had a couple of quarterback runs on Friday night, which caught everybody by, off guard, and they were successful. But how much can you do that? So will having the element of Dylan's legs be schematic, or is that something in the offseason to work on his foot speed or his body just to get him a tick faster?
I do think that I don't think it'll necessarily be a schematic thing, but I do think it definitely does need to be a little bit of an emphasis. Again, I'm not expecting to come out here and, him start running Lamar Jackson offense, but I do think there are some things you could do. I think on Friday we saw some of those good things I think some of those were schemed up, but I don't think it'll be a schematic thing, but I definitely think it's something that needs improved on just so we have that little bit of an element, if that makes sense. I do think that is kind of a little bit of a game changer. I don't need him to be super fast because I do think that you can be very successful in the Big Ten, as we've seen for, across the league in several years now. You don't necessarily need to have a super mobile running quarterback, but having that ability to be effective, especially if the play does break down, I do think that is something that would be big. And I hate to do the Mahomes comparison, but look at him. He's not really a runner, but he ends up, being able, and he's improved as a runner as his career has gone on too. So I definitely do think there is something there for next season.
Hey, that's one thing that needs to go away in the offseason. It's no more Mahomes Jr., it's Dylan Raiola.
I 100% agree. I 100% agree with you. It was just a comparison.
Oh no, I'm not. Yeah, we're on the same page on that. We've done it for a year. Now you got to be the quarterback at Nebraska. And I know there are mannerisms that will not go away, but just you got to get away from that comparison because, it's used against you. I saw, again, it was one of the Iowa defensive backs was talking about the fumble, and they're like, hey, once we sacked Mahomes Jr., he's got to be Dylan Raiola. No more Mahomes Jr. It's got to be Dylan Raiola, and you stand on your own because of the way you play. So we talk about addressing the urgency of moving the quarterback to the next level of development and helping your head coach evolve, because I think they're also attached. Ben, this is the big question from here until Nebraska plays Cincinnati. How do you address the urgency that they have to figure out the doom that is the special teams right now?
Yeah, I 100%. Yes, that has costed us multiple times throughout these last 2 years. This is tough because I'm trying to figure out how to word this.
No, this is a problem. This has cost you.
Yeah.
This has cost you yardage. Iowa's starting field position was the 37. Nebraska's was the 22. I mean, you can't live in that world.
100%. That's why I 100% agree with you. What I will say is a change is most definitely needed. I definitely do think there is a change needed. I'm cool with a lot of these guys, so I don't want to come out and say anything crazy. You know what I'm trying to hint at here, I think. But I definitely do think a change is needed. I do think if we can get a good, accomplished guy in here, but there just needs to be a focus. The lack of situational awareness is what's kind of gotten me this year, of just guys not being able to execute. Like even that first punt, I think it was the first punt. Forgive me if I'm mistaken, but I think it was the first punt for Nebraska of the game. There was like 3-4 minutes left in the first quarter. There's just no outside contain. It was when the Iowa returner caught it on his left side, ended up switching, going back to the right side. There was zero outside contain there. It's just little things like that maybe seem, but no, that's a huge play. That just completely kind of switched the field position a little bit. And we saw that so many times throughout the season, of just a little thing of some guy not doing their job. And I don't know. I thought the field goal unit was looking good. Then we, field goal snap
Yeah. I mean, that was a huge play. That was a huge play because 13-0 in the way that game was going, where there were hardly any explosive plays, and the way Nebraska defensively was playing, man, 13-0 could have felt like 4-touchdown lead.
100%. Yes, I agree with you. And that's just where it's just been so difficult. And especially in these games that are so tight, and especially these games against Iowa, it's just, man, what frustrates me is that it's Iowa's whole game plan for the last 2 years has just been, we don't need to beat Nebraska. We just need to wait for them to beat themselves. And that is just so frustrating, guys. It's working so effectively for them.
I mean, that was a masterclass. That was a masterclass in Iowa football on Friday night. And that's probably what sucks, is because you beat yourself. Iowa didn't come in and take the game. You gave the game to Iowa.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 100%. And that's, I don't know, when I think just kind of throughout this whole year, when we are 5-1, +6 in the turnover margin, now we're finishing the regular season in the negative. I think that kind of explains a lot, as someone who has listened to Coach Rule and his staff speak at clinics and all that, and all the emphasis on ball security and turnover margin and all that. I've given presentations to other coaches about turnover margin, and I've used a lot of the quotes from Rule and a lot of his statistics. I've done that, but I think that kind of shows it. Is 5-1, you're +6. Yeah. Now I think we're at -1. There you go. I think that kind of describes how the season ended up.
Hey, I want to go back to one final thing here before we get you out of here on special teams. Because, Ed Foley has been with Matt Rule for a long time. You're going to have to find a punter. You're going to have to find a long snapper. I think you got your PK1 at least into spring ball, and let Alvano, fight to get his job back. But John Hull really rebounded. And it wasn't his fault on Friday night. That was a horrible snap at the wrong time. But looking at kickoff returns and punt returns, and Nebraska's kind of waved the white flag on punt returns. Is it a philosophy or the wrong guy back there? We saw Barney later in the year. What is it that can be fixed? Because I think it was Drake DeGrassi. He put this out there, and I went and looked this up. Rule, even at Baylor, wasn't big on returning punts and kicks, more of a fair catch guy. Is this a philosophy that it isn't an Ed Foley thing? That's what Matt Rule would prefer, because if you fair catch it, more than likely you're not going to fumble it.
Yeah, no, I definitely do think it's a philosophy thing, especially on the punt returns. there was even some of those where I'm like, dude, we have so much space. Why are we not even trying to get the 5-7 yards they're giving us? Like just free yards right there. It's definitely got to be a philosophy thing. And that's what kind of gets me sometimes is I feel like we're just playing, again, so safe. And we're trying to keep these games so close sometimes. That's another thing that kind of boggled my mind a little bit is we've now shown that this team is built around they're building a team that's supposed to be able to go win these games 13-10, but they're not doing it. And the team's also not, I don't think this year's team was going to go out there and go win any shootout. So it's just frustrating that we're built to play. It seems like a lot of coaching decisions and philosophies are built around keeping these games close. Let's go win a defensive battle. Let's go win a one-score game. The whole chasing three thing. But then that's just not happening. It's just not. That's what's frustrating to me, I guess, is the way this team is built. And then you have to be able to win games like this. And consistently throughout the year, you lost them.
How do you build a roster that wins these games?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I definitely do think very good question. I do think having a very strong running game, but we kind of talked about it a little bit. Having a strong special teams is a huge part of this. How many games over the last 2 years that we've lost have we been able to directly say there was 1, 2, or even more special teams play that directly affected the game result, right? So I definitely think, to me, the biggest part was you got to have one of the best special teams unit in college football, and I don't know how so we're a long way from that. That's what I'll say.
Do you think that could, real quick here, do you think that could change? Because there are some younger guys that either redshirted or didn't play much that have a special teams background in the return game. Do you think that could factor in an improvement next year and maybe a change in the strategy if you have talented guys that could hit their head on the goalpost on one kick?
Yes, I definitely do think that is something that could change. I hope it does change. And I really hope that there's just a mega, I know every coach says it, but it's not just an emphasis on special teams. It's an emphasis on having smart football players, having your players know the situation, know their goddamn job, if that makes sense. So I definitely do think it is possible, and I'm really hoping for it because I do think if this team had a strong special teams unit going forward, it could be a force to be reckoned with. I really do truly believe that. It's just we're so far away from being there. It's just hard to even fathom that right now.
I think the special teams on a football program is a direct reflection on the head coach.
I've heard that, and I first I was kind of hesitant on it, but the more I've thought about it, the more I've looked at other programs. Kind of with you on that now.
Yeah. Hey, what do you have coming up this week?
We're gonna put out a blog on nbnrpodcast.com, just recapping the season, kind of my thoughts. If you go there, then we're gonna have the BA Coaches Show coming out first thing tomorrow morning, talking about the Iowa game. And I'll probably put out a bonus episode later this week, just kind of recapping the year.
Hey, fantastic. I always enjoy the conversation, my friend.
Yes, you as well, Gary. Appreciate you.
That's Ben Audie from the BA Coaches Show. Nebraska didn't have a kickoff return that got to the 20 on Friday night against a team you're playing that has one of the best special teams coaches in America in LeVar Woods, and they thrive on special teams. They thrive on the little details that they take care of and those extra points that can be had when you're in those situations. I mean, there's also the part of the walk-off field goal. I got some cojones. That's a big-time kick.
Kicking a rock, too. It's 10 degrees. And
I mean, tip your cap.
That's all you can do.
Yeah, for a minute there watching NBC, I thought, I didn't go through the uprights. Such a bad angle. All right, Evan Bland going to join us before the hour is over. It's the Gary Sharp Show with Jimmy on this Monday to kick off December, back from Thanksgiving, ahead of what will be a very busy week around here. Wednesday, who knows who's going to be in the fold?
Who knows?
We can't call it National Letter of Intent Signing Day. It's signing a financial agreement day.
Oh, basketball guy confirmed, by the way.
Excuse me?
Basketball guy for later in the show.
Oh, I thought.
Oh, not that basketball guy.
You had talked about the basketball guy.
There's a different
basketball. His, number 2 team in the country in here on Wednesday. Hey, big on Fox. I saw, let's see, it's Kevin, Jim Jackson, and Nick Baugh.
3-man.
They got a 3-man booth for the stripe out at the Chai on Wednesday night for KU.
Oh, they're doing a stripe out.
Yes, they are.
I don't know. I'll be in red.
The blue of KU fans will look a little bit different from the blue of Creighton fans.
There'll be a lot.
The ticket price has gone down?
Not that I know of.
Okay, all right.
No. It's like the Beatles are coming to town.
Evan Bland's coming to the show here in just a bit. It's mornings on 1620 The Zone.
$16.20 The Zone has all the deals for your Cyber Monday. Hey, that's today. Maybe I'm going to stop getting notifications on my phone. Each hour, a different half-off deal to take advantage of. It's already 8 o'clock, so Woodcliff is the 8 o'clock one. You can write this down or just go to the website to see this. 9 a.m., Omaha Children's Museum. Cops, we know Cops at 11. Ted and Wally's at noon. 72 Table and Tap at 1. Stories Coffee at 3. And Le Voltaire at 4. Head to 1620thezone.com for all the deals. Do it now.
Wow, those are great partners. That's a good deal on 1620 The Zone. Hello to all of you on 1620 The Zone on TV, on the stream. If you are into this thing on December 1st, a month into the college basketball season, the NCAA has released their first net rankings this morning. The SEC, which is now a basketball conference, that's what happens.
People forget.
When George is inconsistent and Nick Saban retires, you become a basketball conference. The top two teams are 1-2. That's what it would be if you said they're the top two teams. Tennessee 1, Auburn 2, Gonzaga, Duke, Pittsburgh are the top 5. Now remember, this is December 1, but Nebraska is 44th in the net rankings. South Dakota State out of the Summit League is 96th. Creighton is 99. UTRGV, which has played both Nebraska and Creighton, is 98. That's why I say Selection Sunday begins this week for Creighton and really over the next 5-game stretch, because they have Kansas, UNLV, Alabama, Georgetown, Villanova are the next 5 games. Minimum need 3. If you could pull off 1 win, either in Tuscaloosa or on Wednesday night, that would help immensely. I saw, if you want to get into December 1 net rankings, Shelby Mast, who does the brackets for USA Today, put out his first one. He has Creighton as an 11 seed. He did not have Nebraska in the field. But the first net rankings, Nebraska's 44, Creighton is 99. Let me see where Omaha is. Oh, geez. Keep going. Wait a minute. Omaha's net rating might be actually pretty okay, considering their record. 300. Okay. They also have a good game. Montana State, which is a good non-con game. You don't get a lot of good non-con games at Baxter. That's what the Mavs are playing on Wednesday. They play at 7, and then KU Creighton is at 7:30.
It's a return game, right? Montana State?
No, it's a Big Sky Summer League Challenge.
Okay.
We played in they played a couple years ago, home and home.
Okay.
So
I do remember that.
I've been to, because of Omaha men's basketball, I have been to the beautiful parts of Montana, from Great Falls to Bozeman to Missoula.
You were John Dutton before John Dutton.
Yes, we were in Bozeman a couple of years ago. They do not like to hear about the show Yellowstone. How about what happened last night? Did you think he was going to get killed?
We haven't seen it yet. But who is he talking about?
Evan Bland, not killed.
Thank God.
Will join us next on 1620 The Zone. All right, welcome back in the third hour of the Gary Sharp Show for the final week that this show will be on the air as the Gary Sharp Show. Evan Bland is a consistent from the Omaha World Herald. He joins us now. Happy Thanksgiving. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. Happy December.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. All of our jobs around Nebraska football are going to be very busy leading up to the bowl game. But let's go back to Friday night, because what if I told you that one team would have 334 total yards to 164, one would have 20 first downs to 5, one would go 8 of 17 on third down, while the other would go 0 of 10, one would have 39 minutes of possession time to 21 minutes on the other side. Just take a gander. What do you think the final score would be?
I mean, it sounds to me like Minnesota, Nebraska 2019. So, I don't know, 38-10, something like that.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's 13-10, which was a popular score in the Big Ten. What's the emotion that, as you're covering it post game, and you guys are on deadline and you're writing and you're trying to figure out what just happened? Another walk-off 13-10 Iowa win. How would you describe the emotion? I know Rule kind of said he was angry, but what was the emotion you got out of guys that spoke to the media after the game?
Stunned or numb. Probably numb would be the best way to describe it, because physically, first of all, I mean, they were out there in sub-freezing temperatures, and you just go up the little tunnel in Kinnick, and within, 10 minutes, some of them were processing their thoughts in that press conference. So I think physically, guys were still cold. And then emotionally, I mean, how do you reconcile that in the moment? I think watching that game, and I imagine they felt that way on the sidelines, for 55 minutes, Nebraska was the better team. They were the ones moving the line of scrimmage on both sides. They were the ones with the better quarterback. Defensively, they gave up one big play, and that was it. And they played well. And I think if they looked at the tape this week, they're gonna I think even be just as confounded by it, because there were so many plays where they did a lot of good things, and it was undercut by special teams. We all know the moments, the one defensive play, the missed chances on 3 or 4 deep plays that could have gone for touchdowns, the missed catch over the middle from Naor, the long pass from Harburg that was rushed and went incomplete, the deep ball to Jalen Lloyd on the first drive. Those were the swings that they took, that if you connect on that, given Iowa's limitations on the other side, you're feeling pretty good about it. But they, every single one of those plays went the other way. And that's what you're left with, is this stat sheet that really makes very little sense, especially against a team like Iowa that bases things on field position and time of possession and things like that. So, what a reminder about the importance of special teams, right? That's been the theme for so many years in that particular series. This was another example of that. And, I think the frustrating part is that the losing continues against Iowa, but maybe in a turn of events from past years, this is one where Nebraska really did look like the better team for most of the game.
Do you think so Iowa has the identity, and I described it, Evan, as the risk-adverse strategy, where you might be safe and you wait for the other team to make a mistake, and then you pounce on it, whether it be a fumble, whether it be something else, and you're able to get it and put it into points, and the next thing you know, you live off of winning 13-10 games. Can Nebraska become that, where they can be a team that just hangs in there, and this is probably attached to the chasing 3, where they just hang in there, and then when it's go time and the clock is ticking down, they strike? Are they able to do that? I mean, how do you do that if you haven't been able to do it?
Yeah, I don't know that Nebraska wants to do that. I think that strategy has a ceiling to it, and I think that ceiling is below being a Big Ten champion and being a CFP team. And I think that's what Nebraska's always wanted to do, in part because of the success that it has had in its past. The thing that's always driven Nebraska was to be nationally relevant, to be in the national conversation in November and beyond. And I don't think that style is one that has that high of a ceiling. So like Iowa has that, and and it has a high floor, right? Like that's the other side of it. Iowa is always in the postseason. They were always in the mix for the old Big Ten West. You're going to win a lot of games that way because you're going to make fewer mistakes than your opponent. Minnesota's done that. Wisconsin under the Christ regime did that pretty well. I don't think Nebraska wants to do that. Nebraska wants to recruit and play more like Ohio State. They want to be at that next level. So it's always such an interesting clash of styles because I thought there were a lot of positions on Friday where Nebraska was the more talented team. Certainly the skill positions outside of Caleb Johnson, you would have to say favored Nebraska. The quarterback position favored Nebraska. But just the fundamentals, as you said, the risk aversion sort of approach really paid off for them. So could Nebraska do it? Yeah, I think they could do it, but I just don't think that's part of their ethos as a program. I think they're aspiring to be more than that. And until you sort of shore up your floor, you're going to have these games where, and Nebraska had these games all year where they looked great at times, and we can name those moments, and they looked really bad at times, and we can name those moments too. And so how do you raise that floor and that ceiling simultaneously? I think that's that needle that they're trying to thread. And, right now it continues to be just one of these areas that I think leads to inconsistency too.
Easy or hard fix with special teams going into 2025?
Well, they have decisions to make. I mean, is Ed Foley going to be your coordinator again? That's decision number one. Who's your punter going to be? Brian Buschini is moving on. So do you turn to Camden Cook? Do you look in the portal as they did to get Buschini the last time around? And then, from there, do you move forward with John Hull? What about Tristan Alvano? Like, there are a lot of things that you're going to have to sort through in the offseason. But, the theme of a year ago or for this last year has been chasing three. And it really, like, to me, that sort of mantra comes back to special teams. And it's never been more obvious than we saw on Friday, where everyone can point to you can't even really call it a muffed punt, but sort of the bad luck punt turnover situation. That was their quota, for catastrophic special teams against Iowa. But there were so many other little things, right? Like coming out of the end zone on kickoffs and just consistently starting at like the 19 or the 20 instead of just taking the fair catch and starting at the 25, or the fair catches always kind of felt like they were risky propositions, and Iowa has more of a dynamic return game than Nebraska does. And even Buschini, I think's been pretty good this year, had a couple shanks, the one into the stands. So it was so obvious. Again, not just from what Nebraska was doing, but then you compared it with how Iowa was operating, and like that's the area where you make that stuff up. And this isn't the Big Ten of 10 years ago or the Big 12 where you can get away with some of these mistakes and just sort of obscure them in shootouts and talent disparity. Like, this is a league now. I mean, and you just look at the standings, this bloated middle class of 5 to 7 win teams. Like, every little bit of field position matters. Yeah. Games are swinging on a single turnover or a penalty or whatever. And so, like, the margin for error is so slim that this is where I think you make that up for if you're Nebraska. Like, it's not in necessarily the skill position upgrades, although I think you could work with that. It's not necessarily even, some of these like edge rushing positions. To me, like if there's one area that you can close the gap and take that next step if you're Nebraska, it's on special teams, and they just haven't been consistent enough with it.
Hey, let's go shopping because, the next couple of weeks before we all go to the bowl site, we'll be awful busy with some comings and goings and some additions. And you've got Wednesday coming up, and then next Monday is the portal. If you are shopping and you are Matt Rule, Evan, what is the first position that you would look to acquire a player from in free agency?
Well, I think it's a somewhat complicated question because in a vacuum, I would say defensive line, because you need somebody to sort of fill that role that Ty Robinson and Nash Huntmaker did this year. And maybe they feel like they have those guys. Maybe they feel like Riley Van Poppel is going to take that next step, and Keona Davis, and hey, Elijah Judy's coming back. So maybe they feel good about that. It just doesn't seem to me in this moment that there's that obvious replacement. The thing about the portal, as we've learned in recent years, is those guys, first of all, there aren't a ton of them in the portal, and the guys that are there are highly sought after. You're going to have to pay a lot for those guys. The positions that we've seen are easier to fill, and there's more talent in that transfer market every year, tend to be receivers, tend to be defensive backs. And I would think those would be two areas Nebraska would look at. Again, that's where kind of need matches what's available in the market. I mean, you look at Banks and Nayor, they're moving on. I know they feel good about a lot of their young guys, but you probably still would want to go out, especially with a rising quarterback in Raiola, and get somebody that you feel good about. And I think that would be an attractive destination for a lot of receivers that would come in. And I would say defensive back would be that other spot where a lot of that secondary is turning over. We still don't know what Sierra Wright's going to do. He could move to the next level. We know Deshaun Singleton's done. At safety, you have a couple other older guys there in Buford and Hartzog. So that's probably a spot where, again, you have to kind of assess internally. Do you feel like you have guys that are ready to take that leap next year? And if you don't, I think that's probably another spot that I would look at to add, at the very least, some experience, depth moving forward. So I'd say receiver and defensive back probably.
What do you think will weigh on the mind of Sierra Wright as he makes that decision? He's played pretty well, and all of a sudden he's like, man, I'd love to have that guy for another year. But what do you think will be like at the top of his list of what do I weigh? Should I go into the NFL draft or come back for another year, playing for whoever and playing in the Big Ten?
Yeah, I think his decision's going to be pretty businesslike. Like, he's not a guy who's been at Nebraska for 5 years and feels like he needs to come back and help the program take the next step. Like, he came here for an opportunity to get better, and he got that opportunity. Injuries paved the way, and he seized his chance and moved forward with it. So I think his process will probably be pretty standard, where you look at getting an evaluation of your draft stock, and if it's high enough where he feels like it's worthwhile financially, then maybe you make that jump. But I do think the messaging from Matt Rule and that coaching staff has been pretty consistent for guys in his position, where they say, where they're very honest with these guys and say, hey, yeah, you've done enough. Teams are high on you, or come back, have another year in our program, take some NIL money, dive all in on the nutrition and the strength training stuff. And maybe there's more playing opportunity because of the turnover in the secondary too. So my hunch at this point would be maybe he would come back. I thought he had a good season, but maybe it could be even better if he was a full-time starter, over a year. And again, Nebraska takes good care of its players. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, he's probably gone. But when you do factor in the NIL stuff, the rev sharing stuff, the facility that Nebraska has to develop guys, I think that all weighs pretty heavily for a guy maybe in his position. So he probably is one of those guys who's a little bit maybe among the most 50-50 to come back at this point. But if I were to play a hunch, I'd say he'd be coming back next year.
One final question of as that offense evolved and new guys benefited from Dana Holgorsen showing up. Emmett Johnson was one of them. Last 3 games, basically half of his rushing yards happened in the last 3 games. Did he do enough, you think? Because we're all trying to figure out, when you get to 105, what are the specific rooms going to look like? Are they going to carry just 5 running backs? Are they going to carry 6? Are they only going to carry 4? What's that number going to be? But did they find the guy that is at the top of that list, you think, over the last 3 games with Emmett Johnson's response to the Holgorsen offense?
Yeah, I think so. I was really impressed with what Emmett did over the last 3 games. He was elusive. He was powerful. Probably the one thing you could poke in there against him would be there wasn't really that home run play where he broke one and went 75 to the house. But, just versatile as a receiver. I thought he ignited their screen game in a way we haven't seen Nebraska do it in a long time. And I just think the room, we talked about this a month ago, how far this room has come since the start of November, and Holgerson certainly was a big piece of that. But I think if you're Nebraska and you're assessing your situation, like the Emmett Johnson, Dante Dowdell combo is a pretty good one. I think with Dowdell as sort of the hammer and Emmett Johnson is more of the versatile guy, and you're bringing in Jamarian Parker, who's a home run sort of running back out of the St. Louis area, so you feel good there. The staff's always liked Quentin Ives, so he'll be back. You would figure in the mix potentially. Obviously, you're moving on from Ramir Johnson. We'll see about Gabe Irvin, but I think if you were to rank like your position groups and the priority of adding to that group out of the portal, I'd say the running back room is lower on that list. I think those guys did show enough. They're young enough where you can still build on them here for the next couple of seasons, and they've given a different dynamic to Nebraska's attack under Holgerson.
Yeah, I agree. What a change. Evan, as always, appreciated. Great stuff by you, Sam, and the whole gang on all the content over the weekend. And I know it'll be a busy weekend with Wednesday and whatever else may transpire. So as always, appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Gary. Thanks.
That's Evan Bland from the Omaha World Herald. Last 3 games, Emmett Johnson ran the ball 44 times, caught 19 passes. And then also another part of the Nebraska running game, quietly, because they weren't like long 55-yard runs. There were a lot of dives into the end zone. Dante Dowdell, 12 rushing touchdowns, the most since Ozigbo had 12 in his senior year back in 18. All right, we'll shift gears here. We'll talk a little basketball. Jacob Bigelow is going to join us next. Before we're out of here, I want to go back to something about Matt Rule in year number 3, but what's to come with decisions on roster, staff, and kind of the game plan moving forward. Nebraska paid for something that they're not getting. They're getting the wrong thing that they paid for when it comes to their head coach, but he may have changed post UCLA. I'll explain that coming up in the last hour. Jacob Bigelow coming up next on 1620 The Zone. Good tune. All right, last hour kicks off now with Biggs, Jacob Bigelow, basketball head, all giddy because the net rankings have come out this morning. Brackets are coming out. This is a big week of hoops. Conference play is beginning in the Big Ten. KU is in town on Wednesday night. SEC, ACC Challenge, Big East, Big 12 Challenge. Good morning.
Good morning. That's not a bad song choice to start the week, and yeah, it's a pretty good week for hoops around here. I think Wednesday night could be the best college basketball night of the season, just based on the slate and the schedule that's coming up. But it's a pretty good time of year to be me. That's for sure.
Oh, very selfish of you.
Nice.
Always me.
Why?
Selfish.
Why? Exactly. That's what it says on your profile. Why can't we? Why can't we all embrace the basketball? Why can't I be giddy that Marquette and Iowa State play Wednesday night at Hilton Coliseum?
That's one of the games that has my attention. I mean, I'm sure people are too focused on how these bowl practices are going to be a great springboard to success.
Shade.
So they need to put that off. They need to put off everything else so they can talk about the importance of practice for the Pinstripe Bowl.
Hey,
damn.
Hey, listen here, Sparky. Just because basketball and football have won the same amount of games. But Wednesday, so KU and Creighton play. You have Marquette and Iowa State play. Baylor, UConn play. Let's see. Alabama's at North Carolina, and I think isn't Auburn at Duke?
Yes, Auburn is at Cameron as well. That same night.
So December 4th.
You sound sad.
I know. December 14th is a great slate, but man, it's going to be hard to top Wednesday night in college basketball.
Absolutely. I mean, it's pretty loaded. Some of the rankings for those matchups will move around a little bit. We'll see if I feel like making the trip downtown on Wednesday night. Those ticket prices have come down just a little, so we'll see if I feel like making noted KU guy. If I make my way down there on Wednesday night.
That's true. Biggs has been to more KU basketball games in Allen than I have in the past since I moved here.
Well, now I just feel bad. Jimmy. Now I feel.
Trust me, I've been to enough games in that building, so I'm good.
I figured there was no limit. I figured there was no such thing as enough. But whatever you say.
1 month in, the Big East appears to be in trouble. What kind of shape is the Big Ten in? A month into the non-con.
I think it's still going to be a jumbled up mess. Possibly all the way down to what I think is a pretty clear cut bottom four.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other 14 teams could be quite the jumbled up mess from top to bottom. I think there's clearly no. Excuse me. I think there's clearly no. I think there's no dominant team for sure. There are definitely some teams that have overachieved that are not who I thought they would be. Mainly the team in Madison, Wisconsin. But I think there's
you're saying Wisconsin better than you thought they would be.
Much better than I thought they would be. Much better. But they looked like they knew how to play offense for the first month and a half of last season too, and that didn't end well. So we'll see if some new faces can change the end result. There are some teams that I think are above where I thought they'd be, below where I thought they'd be, and then I think the team in Lincoln is kind of right where I thought they would be in terms of the way they look, what their metrics look like, and through their two marquee non-con games, they went 1-1. So there are some teams that are right where I thought. Some teams, I mean, it's a jumbled up mess of where I thought they'd be, been better or worse than I expected.
So there are two marquee games. Maybe you were thinking win the game in Sioux Falls, but lose the game here. Correct?
Mm-hmm. Correct. Yes.
Okay. What though about? Because I think yesterday is an important win for just Nebraska. Because that would have been an easy game to just kind of be a slog and watch North Florida shoot 700 threes. And the next thing you know, like Georgia Tech and South Carolina, you're like, whoa, how is this a game? But Nebraska controlled that game. So what part of 7 games in, with 2 big Big Ten games coming up, is better than you thought as you watched them in the preseason, broke down this roster, and now have seen them this past week, post-Creighton, no let-up, beat South Dakota, beat North Florida, averaging nearly 100 points in those 2 games?
Yeah, and my answer is not the end of the floor where they scored 100 yesterday and in the 90s against South Dakota. It's been the defense. I think the defense is a lot better than I expected. I know that there were. I mean, that was inevitable. That was what was Nebraska's eventual, downfall at the end of last year, was the way they ended the season and the games against Illinois and A&M, where teams were getting to the rim at will and they just looked, not. I mean, they weren't nearly as athletic as either of those teams, but it was, pretty, plain as day obvious just how big the gap was. The defense so far has been my, biggest, I think they're pretty damn good on that end of the floor, and they can guard. Fred Hoiberg, thought they lost their edge against South Dakota, and didn't have it on defense, but he thought they got it back a little bit, yesterday against North Florida. Their closeouts, the energy they had on that end of the floor, and in the Big Ten, which they'll get in plenty of games that are slogs. I think that'll set them apart. I think I saw something this morning that said they're I think they're the number 15 offense per possession in the Big Ten, but they're I think the 5th or 6th defense per possession in the Big Ten. So the defense has been the pleasant surprise for me.
Why is Connor Essegian consistently thriving in this offense?
It's amazing what getting away from Greg Gard can do for somebody. No, just kidding. But
no, I mean, I know you might. I mean, it's just style. It's a style. You're hey.
Yeah,
Chucky Hepburn's on line 1 for you.
Yes, indeed he is. We can talk about him plenty after the week he had last week. But he's definitely found a role to thrive in. He looks just confident with the energy he has, the confidence he clearly has. I mean, they're clearly drawing stuff up for him, looking to find him. I mean, then some of the threes he took and made yesterday, like there was one early in the second half where he was almost falling away into the Nebraska bench, and I'm like, oh, he's really on one today. Like you can be on one, and then you can be on one. And him just hitting that one where he almost, like, if he fell backwards, he would have landed in Burke or Rink's lap at the end of the Nebraska bench. That one I was just like, oh, this is legit. He has found it. Fred had talked at length about eventually the lid's going to come off from 3. That had kind of been the big concern, and leading up until recently. And Essegian has been the catalyst for making 6 threes in back-to-back games.
Can you say that again? On one?
The fact that he's made 6 threes in back-to-back games.
What you said there is on one, and then there is on one. Can you say that again?
I don't want to be a drop, so I'm gonna politely decline. So I don't want to be a drop, so I'll politely decline there. But I mean, 6 threes. I mean, I was surprised he didn't play more in the second half yesterday. I kind of wanted to see him get a shot at the single game record of 8. But I mean, 6 threes in back-to-back games. That'll play, and then some.
Hey, is it safe to say, and this isn't just they're 6-1 coming off an NCAA appearance, that Fred Hoiberg has at Nebraska become a better in-game coach and a better in-game accountability guy?
Yeah, I'd say in-game and just outside the lines as well. I mean, I think people know what they're going to get with Fred Hoiberg's Nebraska basketball. There aren't questions about identity. There aren't questions about what they want to be, what they want it to look like. I think it's pretty evident and plain as day, and it's been seen. Not just it's now. This is going on the 3rd year of this new identity and culture first emphasis that they've put from top to bottom in the basketball program in Lincoln, because it definitely could have gone a different direction after the way that those first couple seasons went. But it's pretty pretty clear and evident, what they want it to look like. We've seen what it looks like when it's at its best, and even when it's not been at its peak, it's still produced some pretty good for Fred and that coaching staff.
He had some interesting characters at the beginning of his career at Nebraska, and I think these are teams the last couple of years that have that glue guy, that leader guy, that very unselfish guy. I think Bryce Williams definitely is that. But one thing I've noticed is, and I want to go back to accountability, because I think this is big with Fred, because I think he let players run him over at the beginning of his career here, whether it be Cam Mack or Teddy Allen. He didn't have control of his program. And then he took control of his program. I look at, like, Asijan is playing well yesterday, makes a mistake on one end of the floor. You saw what happened, Jacob. His butt's sitting on the bench. And Fred didn't hesitate. He pulled him like right away. He did the same thing with Ulis after he made a bad play. Or he's rewarding guys for what they do when the lights and the scoreboard are not on in PBA. If they practice hard, they're going to get time. They're going to get minutes on the floor. I think that's a positive movement for Fred at Nebraska, because I didn't see that the first couple of years when we all thought this is not going to end well.
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree. I think in the sequence you're talking about with Asijan, I think he made a three on the other end, but then he, made a bad play on defense and was on the bench. And he is rewarding guys like Cale Jacobson. I mean, he will gladly wax poetic about how Cale Jacobson has earned the minutes that he's receiving, how he's always going to make the right read, make the right play smart. He said he's going to defend his ass off yesterday post game, and that's some of the reasons why Cale Jacobson is seeing time as a 6'4" walk on from Ashland who's playing small ball 4 and 5 when he's on the floor for a Big Ten basketball.
Michigan State on Saturday, not ranked, still good team, still got a lot of talent. They're playing at home. Kickoff to the Big Ten. More optimistic, less optimistic. Where are we at going to Michigan State to kick off the Big Ten season after a 6-1 start?
It's kind of a sneaky big game for both teams. Schedules are pretty weird. This time of year, Nebraska doesn't play again for 6 days after the game yesterday, and then they don't play again for another 6. Michigan State, on the other hand, goes to Minneapolis on Wednesday, to open Big Ten play at the Barn. And then there's Indiana, who still has 3 more games to play before they come to Lincoln next week. But it's kind of a sneaky big game for both teams. Michigan State has definitely been up and down to start the year. They look really good in the Maui third place game, when they beat Carolina in overtime. But there have been, other instances where it's been pretty frustrating. I think about that Champions Classic game against Michigan State. I mean, they've had not against Michigan State, they are Michigan State, against KU. They've had some instances to start the year where the pieces have it's looked a little clunky. So I think it's a sneaky big game. I kind of like the matchup for Nebraska, dare I say it. But it's going to be the first day after the semester ends in East Lansing. So a lot of kids will be going home, and it'll be interesting to see what the environment's like for a noon tip at the Breslin Center.
The Izzone will not be packed, is what you're saying?
It might not be. I know once a year they have alumni Izzone night where it's the olds in the Izzone. I don't know if that'll be on Saturday morning, but we double checked the Michigan State academic calendar on my postgame show yesterday, and it is the first day.
Of course you did.
It's the first day after the semester ends. It's the first day after the last day of classes.
We didn't have alumni day at KU. I don't get it. The students still showed up.
Were you? Have you been on the bench in a win in East Lansing?
I have not. I never. That was one of the arenas.
15, 16?
That was one of the arenas I didn't make. I never got to when I was a manager, unfortunately. So I've never been to the Breslin Center.
We gotta get them there.
All right. Guess the spread. Nebraska, Michigan State on Saturday. Usually, college basketball lines don't come out until about 24 hours prior. Guess the line for Nebraska, Michigan State.
Michigan State minus 6.5.
That's what I had.
Okay, that's reasonable. I think that's reasonable. Especially playing at home. Nebraska in the Big Ten. But if Nebraska can split, I think that's a great sign. To put themselves in a position, because they've got the St. Mary's win looks good. They got beat by Arizona State, but it's still, I think it's going to age well, or that not the St. Mary's game, but then the Creighton. I mean, Nebraska needs Creighton to play well to help them, but they're going to have to finish at least 500 in the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I completely agree. And then they still have their MTE the week of Christmas out in Hawaii, opening with Murray State. They either play in Charlotte or Hawaii in that second game. I think you need to. I think you need to bring home a trophy from Hawaii, just to leave no doubt with your non-con. So I think that'll be. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it in a couple weeks, and then this Indiana game next week on a Friday night at 7 on Big Fox. Also, could be sneaky big as well. Depending on how Saturday morning goes.
Yeah, they can't defend you or I right now. I know you have a connection to IU basketball. Man, they look rough.
They still can't shoot the ball well either. So that's Indiana basketball. They still can't find guys who can shoot the ball. And a kid from Fort Wayne who turned Nebraska down turned Indiana down not once but twice. Has made 6 threes in each of his last 2 games playing for Nebraska.
Interesting. Good storyline there. All right, my friend, I hope today works out for you. Sorry we missed you here in studio, but you're welcome anytime.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the kind words, and yeah, we'll have a run at it sometime down the road. But I appreciate the time like always, and have a good rest of the week.
All right, thanks, Jacob.
Thanks, guys.
All right, mornings with Sharps and Biggs. Got it. We'll wait for the email.
What the hell was I thinking? The Nebraska beat St. Mary's. That was an opportunity that would have looked really, really good. St. Mary's net this morning is 25th. Michigan State 41, Indiana 71, Murray State 88. Only the opponents that you know for sure. And then you got Southern, which is 168. You got a couple games in the Diamond Head Classic, but the only one that you know is Murray State. But 6-1, and now you got to split Michigan State and Indiana in the Big Ten. One other thing over the weekend in college basketball, and I'm a big proponent of college basketball not starting until Thanksgiving, so I appreciate that this past week on Feast Week we had some great matchups.
Right,
like college basketball did deliver.
Yeah,
everybody said we're all in college football mode, but college basketball delivered with some great matchups.
Great tantrums.
Yeah. He's such a whiny baby.
I thought you were going to say something else.
No, you've won back-to-back national championships, okay? So you lost 3 in an MTE. Just stop.
Now we're never going to play in it again.
You know what? You're unbearable. Just stop. You're the villain. I get it. But you're a baby. You're a baby whining about the MTE, and you're never ever going to play there again. All right, you know what? How about play better? How about don't be so sloppy? How about guard? How about don't foul?
Have Adam Blue Crew when they come here.
With that said, there was some sadness this weekend in college basketball.
Yeah.
Louis Carnesecca passed away at the age of 99. The man almost lived to 100. 99 years old. When you are known by just one word and one name, and that's Louis, and everybody knows who you're talking about, that's a hell of a legacy. And his legacy is incredible from the standpoint of the characters that we've had, especially in college basketball.
Yeah.
More than college football, in my opinion. But we've had characters in college basketball when not as many games were on TV, and when a game was on TV, it seemed like it was extra special. But you had characters who maybe they had a funny accent, or maybe they wore a sweater, or maybe they had Walter Berry and Chris Mullen and Bill Wennington, and they had some great players. But you had characters. I mean, look at that's the advantage if you're old enough to remember. The Big Eight had characters.
Everybody.
That's what made the Big Eight so great, is that the coaches were characters. We have less and less characters. And I thought about that a lot during watching the Maui tournament, because that was Bill Walton. Bill Walton was at Maui. And, I don't believe that Vitale is doing any games this year. He's still battling cancer. I think he's winning battles, but I don't believe that he has been assigned to any games. But Vitale was a character. We had characters across the board. Louis Carnesecca was a character, but he was also somebody that not only was identified with New York City, was identified with St. John's basketball. I mean, look at, until you got to Pitino, look at the coaches at St. John's post Carnesecca.
Yeah. Besides Mike Jarvis, him.
But I mean, not anywhere close to the level of Louis Carnesecca. Yeah. So he passes away this weekend at the age of 99. And I think it was Matt Norlander suggested, with the history of the Big East and his connection to the Big East, and think up until this year, he would be at most games in the arena that was named after him. He'd even go to Madison Square Garden. And we all know his relationship with Big John Thompson. And now they're upstairs watching Big East basketball and telling old stories. And those two having back and forth with great teams.
Coach, all they do is shoot threes.
But you remember the night where John Thompson showed up and he was wearing a Louis Carnesecca sweater? I saw Matt Norlander suggested that maybe during conference play, when all of the Big East teams are playing, that all the coaches wear a Louis Carnesecca type sweater.
That would be cool.
Save it for some coaches wear ugly Christmas sweater. Save it for like January, February. But I think it would be a really great tribute if coaches wore like an outlandish sweater during the game, and that's a tribute to Louis Carnesecca.
Or Pitino wore. That would be a big story in itself.
Hasn't he before? I don't think, has Pitino gone the all white like he used to wear at Louisville?
He did last year for a game.
He did? Okay, where he was Colonel Sanders?
Yeah.
Which, by the way, when he showed up here in Omaha to recruit Okoye Gal.
Patino, not Colonel Sanders.
He was, he was dressed in all white. I think he did a game. Did he wear for Patino's fit, like a crazy sweater? But Matt Norlander, I'm pretty sure, suggests that. I think it would be a great idea.
Yeah.
But the thing about when you go down the rabbit hole of Carnesecca is it just reminds you, back in the 80s, Big East basketball was the bomb.
It was the best. When
you think of Big East basketball, look at if I said this to you, just a stranger on the street, and I said, Big East basketball.
Patrick Ewing.
You're not going to rattle off Danny Hurley, Greg McDermott, Shaka Smart, Ryan Kalkbrenner.
Patrick Ewing, Mully.
God Shamgod. You're going to go, you're going to go Carnesecca, Big John. You're going to go Pearl Washington.
Raleigh
Massimino. Ed Pickney. Who else?
Send it in, Jerome.
The 6 overtime game between Syracuse and UConn at the Garden. And Carnesecca wasn't coaching there. But back in the 80s, Big East basketball, ESPN and Big East basketball became a marriage that was incredible because it was Big Monday. It was at 6 o'clock Central. You might be at Fitzgerald Fieldhouse at Pittsburgh, where Charles Smith is going to send it in. And was it Jerome Lane?
Jerome Lane.
Charles Smith was on that team. Jerome Lane.
Former Suns great.
Jesus, what the hell's wrong with me? Send it in, Jerome. Or you were at the Garden. You were at when Boston College was in the Big East and they played at the Boston Garden. They had John Begley. I mean, the 80s were ESPN and Big East basketball were a marriage, and it was fantastic. It was incredible. And it was St. John's and Georgetown and two legends of the game that were leading the charge. And then, oh, by the way, there was Massimino who pulled off the 85 upset. I fell in love with the Big East back then. Now, the Big East has done a good job to rally, and it's become one of the premier conferences without the 80s and ESPN and all the characters.
Still pretty damn good basketball.
This year, been a little rough. I mean, it could be a little rough in March, but man, when I heard that he had passed away, there's a guy that is so connected to New York City in one particular program that when you look at St. John's, you're either the first thing you're going to say is Mullen, or you're probably going to say Carnesecca.
Yeah. We did a game at St. John's. I think I've told you this before. We did a game at St. John's several years ago. We had a New York trip. First thing I did at shoot around, I had to go see the display for Louis. And it just even said Louis, and you knew exactly what that is. And my wife was with us on this trip. She's like, "Who's that?" I said, "That's the legend. That's who this place is named after." I was kind of half hoping. I was like, I mean, I don't know who goes to women's games, but if he could come to this one, I'd be tickled because, yes, I started growing up with that too when I was a kid. And the thing is, and we've talked about it before, these guys would stay in school 3-4 years. So you got to know, you had rivalries between dudes. And when we say dudes, we mean dudes.
Yeah. And then, the basketball was physical. The basketball was great. New York City basketball, people were, Either they're going to St. John's or they're going somewhere else.
Hey, coming to America, they're at a St. John's game.
Oh, that's true. That is true. But Louis Carnesecca passed away over the weekend at the age of 99. I imagine that his service will be legends of the game that are still with us that will be there because he had such an impact. But man, to the St. John's community, that guy was everything. All right, when we come back, we'll shift back into football with my thought on what Nebraska looks like moving forward when it comes to their head coach, because we'll be off to year number 3 after a 5-7 and 6-6 regular season. And we'll debate, would you rather be here or Madison, where they're not going bowling, have no identity, may have a lot of guys in the portal? That's going to be interesting in Madison, Wisconsin in the offseason. All right, 9:24. Crossovers coming up at the top of the hour. If you missed any segments this morning with Ben Audie, Evan Bland, or just joining us, Jacob Bigelow, they'll be up on the radio replay page at 1620thezone.com. Go to the Gary Sharp Show for the final time this week to pull down that tab and consume all that content on 1620 The Zone.
1620, The Zone is teaming with Share Omaha for Giving Tuesday 2024, a day to celebrate what the Metro can do together in just 24 hours. Donate now through December 3rd. Hey, that's tomorrow. To support your favorite local nonprofit. All the details can be found at 1620thezone.com, where we remind you that it's now December.
All right, welcome back from the Thanksgiving break. You can play the game with my friends and I. I am currently on day number 2. We have this contest amongst friends. It is on the honor system, is how long you can avoid the Last Christmas by Wham.
Ooh.
This is a deal between me and my buddies that began about 12 years ago because somebody was in a mall with their daughter waiting to sit on a stranger's lap dressed as Santa Claus.
It's funny because that mall didn't even have Santa.
But and they heard 3 times in a row the Last Christmas by Wham. So it started a contest where we try and figure out who can go the longest with avoiding hearing that song, whether it be on a radio, in a mall, whether it be in your favorite store, whether it be it pops up on Spotify or just randomly on the radio while you're driving and you can't get to it in time to change it. You're out of the contest. We all put $20 in.
I just ripped the radio right out.
So play along if you'd like, and you would do yourself a favor by avoiding that song.
Oh, it's one of the worst. There's my hot take.
Hey, we've just blown right through Thanksgiving. There's a station here in Omaha that Christmas music started playing like the middle of November, and it'll play nothing but Christmas music between now and, of course, Christmas.
And then they'll have a format change to easy listening.
I was looking at the hit yesterday that Trevor Lawrence took from Aziz.
They took some Z's. Damn, that's scary.
Dirty hit, crossed the line. It is one of those, and the NFL this year, they have not consistently called those type of hits. Now, they made the right call yesterday. And I mean, Trevor Lawrence, when they had him on the Gator going out, I was like, Jesus. I mean, he doesn't know what's going on. But it was a cheap hit. You know what that hit reminded me of?
Asking for Dabo.
You're an old soul when it comes to the game of football.
Thank you. A lot of NFL films as a kid on ESPN. They used to show it.
You know what that hit was like? That hit was like straight out of the 80s.
Yeah. Where it would have been like, okay, don't do that again. Next time we're going to call that a penalty. But then Trevor stays in the game because they would rule him out with a slight concussion, which I always laughed. It's slight concussion. Oh, he's slight. Give him a smelling salt, he'd be right back in. No clue who he's playing for.
Yeah, in the 80s, they would let that hit stand. Quarterback would either be done or, you're right, he'd go to the bench. They give him some smelling salts. They'd slap him in the face a couple of times, and they'd be like, "Hey, get right back out there."
That question's got to be true, false.
Now, if a player gets knocked out and comes back in, you wonder, what was Ryan Day doing with Will Howard on Saturday?
Well done.
What was Chip Kelly doing? You have these.
Was he sandbagging?
You have the world famous wide receivers, but yet you're trying to prove something else, and you're looking at that stat where it's 23 straight games that the team that rushes for the most yards in the big game between Ohio State and Michigan wins the game. And you keep just running the football when you had one touchdown drive where it was 9 passes, 1 run, ended up with a score and took 1:45. Chip Kelly's game plan was not very good. Ryan Day is tighter than you know what, your favorite girlfriend when you were first starting to date. But
nice.
The whole operation, that is a mental thing.
I was 5.
But speaking of the mental thing, now let me tell you about Matt Rule. Hey.
You're on a roll. You're cooking now.
Yeah, my Heisman ballot just showed up. Heisman voting opens today. So the next couple of weeks are vitally important for what's to happen with Nebraska football in 2025 and then even beyond. You've got the addition of players coming up on Wednesday. You could have a couple of flips. Nebraska looks like Cortez Mills is going to flip. That's a good addition to what will be a relatively young wide receiver room that I don't care who's catching the ball. Nebraska's wide receivers are not going to take the extra leap unless I find wide receivers that can get yards after contact. Don't need the drops, need the catches, but how about some yards after contact? But it's an interesting room with young wide receivers. So you're going to add a couple on Wednesday. So that'll be something that'll be first up. You've got coordinator decisions on locking them up or whatever their future looks like here in the next week, because you have portal guys that you'd like to grab. And you never know. If someone stays on your staff or someone goes, does someone go with them that is a headset and then also a helmet? So you got a lot of moving parts over the next couple of weeks before you ever get to practicing for a bowl game and, of course, going to a bowl game. A lot of the projections this morning still are from the Pinstripe Bowl all the way to the Music City, and Phoenix drops into the middle. I've seen less Charlotte this morning.
Probably for the best for everybody.
Less Charlotte, more Pinstripe this morning.
Just look out your window. Might be what it could be like.
But you have moving parts. You got to make decisions on staff, strategy. Then you have the portal, which a week from today opens. I think for the most part, guys on your roster that are going to go into the portal, even the ones that you have encouraged or the ones that there's just not a spot for them. But there's going to be a plethora of guys that are in the portal. It kind of started yesterday. It was start of a trickle of, okay, that's a good wide receiver that's in the portal. Will he stay in state? Will he stay in Texas, or will he look elsewhere? Is there any connection? Did Nebraska recruit him in the past? And then you ultimately get to the bowl game. So there's a lot of stuff going on here, which if you're the man that's in charge, who I think Rule needs to find a way to be the CEO. Hire good coordinators, let them do their job. You run the top of the program. Don't hang out, but don't meddle. You hired them for a reason. Let them do their job and be the figurehead and run the program and get it to where it needs to go. But I think what now, 24 games into Matt Rule's tenure, there have been times during, even in year one, even in year two, when there's more familiarity, I have wondered, this is a beast. It's an absolute beast to run a Fortune 500 company that's based in Lincoln, Nebraska. Can you handle it all? There's a lot of parts. There's a lot of staff. There's a lot of things that go on. You hire the right people, that you let them do their job, and you don't have to really worry about that. You can focus on your job of being the head coach. But what I think Nebraska paid for is not what they're getting. Nebraska paid for the Matt Rule from Temple and Baylor, where his teams were tough. They weren't fake tough. They were tough between the ears. They were tough on the football field. And he was a tough coach that when he preached something, it got backed up by the actions. For example, there's the stat that I think it was 30. It's over 30 straight games that Baylor won when they were leading or tied going into the fourth quarter. Nebraska was outscored this year in the fourth quarter, 74-62. At Temple and Baylor, where you played with a chip on your shoulder and not much attention, you were in Philly. Eagles. You were in Waco. Not a lot of people are going down to Waco. They might land in Dallas, but they're like, David Koresh still in Waco? Not going to Waco.
I said enough bad things Saturday. I don't need to go back
That's
to Waco.
right. The Baylor Bears. Dave Aranda, hell of a turnaround.
Good coach.
Kept KU out of a bowl game.
Yeah.
But that's who you paid for, is the Temple Baylor Matt Rule. Nebraska has gotten a lot of the Carolina Matt Rule, where it seems to be a little bit disorganized. Ups and downs. Not consistent football. Gives you a glimpse of what it can be, but it never is that from week to week. And then this is where I pause and say, I can't wait to see what the next evolution is post UCLA, where everything started to get squeezed. Fans were out. Fans were doubting Matt Rule. It was one of the low points of his tenure, might be the lowest point. Post UCLA, that Temple Baylor guy appears to have arrived. And what does that mean for the next couple of weeks? Because that's The Temple Baylor Matt Rule is who Nebraska is paying money for, not the Carolina in the beginning of his Nebraska tenure. Because the Temple Baylor guy that spoke it, his team matched it. He has spoken a lot. His team hasn't necessarily matched that. But post UCLA, that vibe is different, and it's required. Because it's fair game to go, where are we going? Where are we going? Thanks for the bowl game, but can't live in the 6-6 world and can never go back. So that's why I think the next couple of weeks are vitally important to key decisions that are made of guys that stand next to you on the sidelines or play on your field that help you grow, because you have young guys who you hope they learn from this year and they're ready to go for next year, so that instead of sitting here going 6-6, you're like, beat both the rivals. Now we're looking at a better bowl game, and we're not complaining that you might end up in New York City after the holidays, and it's going to cost you to fly from Omaha, Nebraska to New York City right now on December 26th. It's going to cost you about $795. Them the facts.
I mean, could you drive it in one day?
Nashville, not as expensive, but still a little expensive.
But drivable.
Well, I've been saving money for 8 years.
Yeah, we did Memphis a couple years ago. You could do Nashville.
What was the drive? Well, Memphis is on the other side of the state.
I know.
Nashville is Nashville 10?
Memphis was
10,
about
12 hours?
9, 10. So I'd say 12 to Nashville.
Okay.
That's doable.
All right. Quick break. Come back. Lynn, stay right there. We'll get to your call when we return to put a wrap on this Monday edition of the Gary Sharp Show on 1620 The Zone. All right, Monday Night Football tonight here on the Zone. Broncos-Browns
Birdie
to
Coes
wrap
are John
up
Elway.
the drive.
Yeah.
How many references on ESPN will be to the great Browns-Broncos games? The fumble at Mile High, the drive at Municipal Stadium at the Mistake by the Lake. That's coming up tonight here on the Zone. Coming up right now on the 42 Degree Source Hotline is Lynn. Good morning, Lynn.
Good morning. Thank you for taking my call. Mm-hmm. And I apologize if I missed this conversation earlier, but I'm a longtime Husker fan, and I was calling about our 4 captains that did not shake hands at the beginning of the game. Mm-hmm. And has Matt Rule addressed this yet?
No.
Okay.
It was.
My question would be why?
Go ahead.
Well, my question is, why has he not addressed this? Because he talks about he wants to build men. He wants to build men with character. And my whole family is Iowa fans. I take a brutal beating every year. And I've always been so proud of Nebraska because win or lose, we've always had a lot of integrity. Mm-hmm. And we've played with good sportsmanship. I was a college tennis player. I know all about wanting to have confidence and not show weakness to your opponent. But being a good sport is important. And it just was so disappointing to see that. And I thought right to myself right there, we've already lost the game because they're in our head. We showed them right off the bat that we've already lost the game. It was so disappointing. Why do you think they didn't shake hands?
Well, a couple things here. One, when the media got their opportunity with Matt Rule, I don't think any of the Nebraska media knew that happened.
Okay.
Where it was brought to light was Jay Higgins talking about it in Iowa's postgame, and all the Nebraska media were with Matt Rule. So people were not aware of that, so they did not ask him. The next time he speaks will be on Wednesday when they have their newest recruiting class. My question is, before I go deeper into this is not apparently they've not been doing this. They've not been shaking hands all year. And I just want to know, what is the why?
Yeah, I would too. I would want to know the why.
And then we'll go from there.
And the other problem I have is, if they're doing, I'm not sure why you wouldn't do it, because it makes no sense to me. It's just been part of the game. It's a good sportsmanship thing. But it's really hard to have a lot of swagger against Iowa when they've owned us the last, decade? I mean, let's be honest. It is not a rivalry yet because we can't win a game. But I'm just so disappointed. And I would like to know, and that's why I called in. I'm just really disappointed. And if they haven't been doing it the whole year, then that's really a problem.
Yeah, I think that Lynn, I think that'll be a question that'll be asked of is there a why? But let me ask you this: if Nebraska wins on Friday, does this even get brought up?
It does by me.
Okay.
Because I'm trying to see the bigger picture. Is to me it's more important. Tom Osborne he wanted to win, obviously, but there was something even more important than that. And, I'm part of his teammates program, and I mentor, and there's something he has instilled in people through the years. It's how you behave. It's who you are. It's the character that you have and your integrity. And that's what people remember about you. It's not your wins and losses. It's your character and how you carry yourself. And I just want us to be a team that has that integrity and that character. And I'd also like it if we could find some receivers that could catch balls at critical moments. Because we had that game won. We were dominating on all sides. And we have receivers that let balls go right through their hands that are perfect throws. And, I mean, that's a whole other topic. But anyway, thank you so much for taking my call.
Lynn,
I really appreciate it. Love your show.
Hey, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
If people are just tuning in, we haven't really talked about this at all until the end here. And so, whoops, Chris called back. I think I just dropped Chris. So I would like to. I mean, I first need to know why. So it wasn't just Friday that they've not shaken hands with the opponents on the coin toss. I guess has been happening all year. And I'd just like to know, what is the reasoning behind that? I mean, boxers, they tap gloves and then they go beat the crap out of each other. I don't know what the reasoning is behind it. So that would like some clarification. But I imagine that'll get asked coming up on Wednesday. All right, here is, let's do this quick here. To finish the show, we waited until the 11th hour to talk about the handshake. More important stuff to talk about, Chris.
We do, but that's on the team's fault. I apologize. The team did this, and they continue to make us a national embarrassment. They're 6-6, Gary, and they've lost to Iowa 11 out of 12 years now. And as someone who worked at Knoxville Raceway, had to drive the heart of Iowa, Hawkeye country, I hear about it. My phone blew up. It's just another way this program continues to embarrass us. I love this team. I spend my vacations going to away games. I went to USC this year. I'm going to Happy Valley. Was going to Happy Valley next year. Don't know about this now. It needs to be addressed. They're 6-6. Like, this is 90s Colorado stuff. What are we doing here? This was an embarrassment. I mean, get out there. I understand that Nebraska fans, Iowa, they throw the kisses after the field goal. They won the game. Do it after. If you want to plant a flag in the middle of the field, do it. Go for it. I'd love to do it. If we beat Iowa, plant that end on the Hawkeye logo and go for it. Until you can do it on a consistent basis, the whole not shaking hands thing, it's an embarrassment. And now it's going to be brought up for eternity, forever. And it's just another thing that embarrasses this fan base. If we were winning 9 games a year, 8 games a year, we were maybe 5-5 with Iowa the past 10 years, not as bad. This is pathetic.
Chris, thanks for the phone call. Winners get to set the narrative. Here is Eric. Good morning, Eric.
Hey, how you doing? I
Good.
listened to a woman insinuate that Tom Osborne wasn't all about winning while we put Lawrence Phillips and Christian Peter on the field after their, what do we call those, indiscretions. But it wasn't all about winning. It was about helping those individuals. Let's be real as Husker fans here. Winning is paramount to what we're dealing with at the moment. So let's not make those things. Let's not try to act like sportsmanship is the overall factor when people used to wear shirts that had a bad word and then said Oklahoma or icons that had Herbie Husker peeing on another state. That's all I got to say. That was the most ridiculous call I think I've ever heard about sportsmanship.
All right. Thank you for the phone call. Didn't know that the last words on this edition of the show would be Herbie Husker peeing on
a state. At least it was the old Herbie. There's that. It's a different conversation.
I don't know why. I don't know what the reasoning is. I don't know. There's motivation for Iowa because for basically 55 minutes they got their ass kicked. Okay, it's not like all of a sudden they got riled up. It's a rivalry. It's emotion. There's sports. I'd like to know the reasoning before I move forward on why they are not doing that. I would shake hands. You don't have to look somebody in the face. Shake hands, do it protocol, whatever, then go out and kick their butt. But by not shaking someone's hand, does that prove that you're nasty? No. You prove for 60 minutes. But I do want to know the why, because it's not just Friday night they didn't shake hands. It's been all year. So there must be a reason. And does it come from the top? I mean, does Rule even know that? And when they go out there, now he does now. Now, part of the stuff that Jay Higgins said, again, winners get to set the narrative. You got 360 days till you play again. And you don't think there'll be some intrigue. Higgins won't be here. Rule will be here. When Iowa comes to Nebraska, that's what it's about. It's about emotion. Now, some of the stuff he said, the thing that, and then there was video shared, I think by Channel 7 of every coach, or not every coach, but most coaches walk around the field. Okay. Deion Sanders, do we not remember back in September? People were following him as he made his jaunt around the stadium.
That's how you could find him.
Bud Crawford was warming up, and Bud Crawford stopped to dap up Deion. And Deion was standing where the specialists were. It happens. So Matt Rule has every right, or every coach, to make a lap. He's on that side of the field. He walked on the sidelines by where Iowa was. You want to be agitated about that? That's on you. But he gets to talk. He's the winner. He gets to set the narrative. Whether he's right or wrong, That's on him. That's his character. Do I think that Matt Rule said, "Who are you?" No. The guy's a friggin' All-American linebacker. Should be one of the finalists for the Butkus Award. I'm pretty sure that the head coach at Nebraska knows it. But when you win, you get to set the narrative.
He should have said, like, Matt Rule, nice to meet you. Good game.
I mean, you don't think the Iowa Twitter account posting, that's where first everybody found out about it. Because was anybody aware that they had not been doing this? I was not.
No.
But they don't ever see the coin toss. You probably don't watch the coin toss. You listen to see who gets the ball.
They're going to defer anyway. It doesn't matter.
But this is the kind of BS you talk about when your team is 6-6. And if you spend time talking about this, you don't spend enough time talking about why Nebraska football is 6-6 and lost a game on Friday night in the manner in which they did that looks all too familiar. All right. That'll do it for the show.
Nice way to tie it up.
I mean,
good way to start the final week of the Gary Sharp Show.
I moved on. Okay. I want to talk about the football.
I like the football.
I mean, you could draw a correlation of, hey, you do stuff like that, ties into a 6-6 program. I would listen. I don't want to talk about why you're 6-6. Why you're 6-6 on the football field and lose a game which looks all too familiar. Crossover is coming up next. Thanks to all of our guests, all of our callers, all of our streamers, everybody. Thank you on this Monday to kick off the last week of the Gary Sharp Show. Crossover with Connor Happer is next. For Jimmy, I'm Gary. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 6 on 1620 The Zone.